I was always active as a kid. My biggest downfall was I couldn't control my food. I couldn't say no, but I was always into fitness. I just wasn't fit. And I got to the top of the stairs and I was out of breath. Even from a young age, I had this sort of affinity towards military lifestyle. Didn't even go to graduation. I just made the jump, to be honest. I was given 2 weeks warning. You can start in 2 weeks. I was like, done. And that was the very first competition I ever did, was through the army. But I came third and I was like, you know what? I'm actually pretty decent at this. You sat there by yourself. It's bloody freezing. You can't touch the barbell because it's that cold. You got a tiny little heater on in the background and you're expected to hit a PB. It's difficult. It's not easy. It's not in my mentality, my mind, to just be like, this is enough. In my head now, I've got goals and I'm not going to stop until those goals are achieved now. It shouldn't be about who you're fighting or how big the odds are. It's always about how you respond and how you react.
Welcome back to the KultureKast podcast. Today I am joined by a powerlifter who won gold medal at the 2019 Commonwealth Games. In the under 102 kilogram category, he lifted a combined total of 795 kilograms. Welcome, Inderraj Singh. How are you doing, brother?
Thank you, welcome. Doing good. Just working away, bits and bobs, carrying on training.
It's interesting at the moment with the pandemic. I see that you've got your setup in the house, which is obviously coming in handy.
Yeah, luckily work squared me away, so they've closed down like the main gyms and stuff because of everything that's happening. They've given me my own little space, and provided me with like funding and stuff to be able to train and just do my own thing regardless of what's happening around me. It's been a lifesaver, to be honest.
That's quite a lucky touch, because at the moment it's really hard to get a hold of any equipment, isn't it? As soon as that first lockdown happened, every sort of plates, dumbbells, all websites were just out of stock everywhere.
Instantly out of stock. Luckily, I managed to wrangle some sponsors before this all went down. There's a lad called Gerps Ojla from up north. He owns a company called Extreme Fitness. Amazing products. He squared me away with near enough 99% of all my stuff. So lifesaver.
Yeah. Shout out to him then. What I like to do at the beginning of each podcast is basically take a trip down memory lane and just talk about your background, your upbringing, your cultural background, and just like who you are, a bit of context on Inderraj.
Yeah, so I born and grew up in Wolverhampton. Quite a typical upbringing, to be honest. Grandparents, parents, brothers, massive family. Really nice growing up there, to be honest. Really close knit, everyone living together. It's the best way. I couldn't have had it any better, to be honest. Grandparents raised me from when I was a little one, so I spent a few years in India, spent the rest of my time here just chilling out, chasing my granddad around, chasing my grandma around, going Gurukar with them, the usual tabla classes, bhaja classes, learning how to do kirtan. Weekends are busy doing Punjabi school and stuff, so kept myself super busy while I was young with everything, to be honest.
Yeah, it seems like the typical thing when you're like in a Western country but from like Eastern descent, if that makes sense. Like a lot of immigrants have like their own like sort of school set up. Up in Newcastle, there's not massive Sikh community, but even we had like our Punjabi class, so on the weekends you'd always go there, and we had like Sikhi camps in the summer, and that's where I started playing tabla. They didn't really have it like included in the Punjabi school on the weekends, but in the Sikhi camp in the summer, that's when everyone used to fight over the one or two that have like spare at the Gurdwara.
Yeah, standard.
If you didn't have your own, that is.
See, ours was a bit different because Wolverhampton's such a massive community, and obviously you got Walsall, Birmingham, you got even the surrounding communities, Leicester, Nottingham. It's very, very heavily populated by Apne people anyway. So we used to have like Punjabi school on Saturdays at the Gurukar and external ones all over the city, and then on Sunday the same thing again, and then Bhaja and Tabla classes multiple times a week. It was a lot easier to get into things being an Apna, but in Wolverhampton.
Yeah, it's the more you go down south, the more like obviously apnea there is. I spent a lot of summers Leicester, like that's where my Massey lives,
Yeah.
and it was like completely different to up in Newcastle. I remember, like like the markets on like the weekend, you go down to the markets, and we were going down, and I remember speaking to I think it was my cousin in Punjabi about like one of the, I think it was like a wallet or something that was on like a market stall, and to my surprise, obviously the market owner, the person who had like the stall, they responded back to me in Punjabi, but that fully took me away because I'm used to Newcastle where there's just no happening whatsoever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like lately, like last couple of years, I've not been around that kind of environment because of work and traveling and all sorts. And it makes a massive difference when you go back home and just you're able to just be 100% yourself rather than having to change yourself depending on who you're speaking to.
Yeah, 100%. Because of that big sort of diverse upbringing that you had, like the community, did you? I'm guessing there was like no problems of like how do I phrase, well, racism, I guess, is the easiest way of like not fitting in. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
See, honestly, like I speak to a lot of people and they're like, I had X racial issues, I had Y racial issues, and I'm not taking it away from them whatsoever. Like everyone goes through their own experiences. But for me, growing up, there was zero racial tension anywhere. Maybe we were oblivious to it because we were younger, but the schools I went to were multicultural, primary, secondary, sixth form. The area I lived in was multicultural. We used to play football in the evenings, hours at a time at the park, and the kids I used to play with were different cultures, different backgrounds, and there was never, ever, ever a racial issue growing up. I guess I'm blessed and lucky, to be honest, that I grew up in that kind of environment because I never saw that. For us, it was just people who you get along with and who you don't, like color of the skin and your religion made no difference to us whatsoever.
Yeah, it is interesting. Obviously, in this podcast, I've like spoken to quite a few opening now, and everybody has different experiences. Some people just don't encounter racism whatsoever, and hopefully that happens more often than not. Do you know what I mean? But the
Mm,
sometimes obviously it does happen. Like I've said before on the podcast, like it's up in Newcastle. It's a bit rougher, I guess, than down south. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the people are so nice, but just because there isn't as many up on it, it's the ignorance thing, isn't it? Is like
yeah,
because you don't know about a different culture or something, then you sort of ignorant to it, and then that can lead to like, well, basically racism at the end of the day. But I think when people are around so many different cultures, that ignorance goes out the window. Like your perceptions, or like your perceptions of like a culture when you haven't had an experience with them may be like positive and negative, but when you've had the experience yourself and it's positive, then you're way more open-minded to like other cultures, if that makes sense.
yeah, 100%. Like we never. It's weird, but I never thought about it back when I was younger.
Hmm.
But looking back at it now, I never saw the skin of a person or the religion of a person. Right, when we were with lads from school, when we were playing football, I never saw someone. I thought, you know what, he's different.
Yeah.
You just blended in. You did things. You had fun. You played football. You went to school. You did your work. It was never. There wasn't this like tension that there seems to be a little bit more of now. Maybe just the fact that people are bringing it to the front and are showcasing the racial tensions they felt, that it's increasing tension further. I don't know, but I
Mhm.
never felt that as a kid.
Yeah, I feel like when obviously like coming from the Sikh background that we do is the other thing that like we treat everybody equally. Like that's what we're taught from a like religious standpoint, is everyone is like equal. But I do agree with the point that you made there, is that I think with technology now, like the things that might have went on like unknown or not like highlighted beforehand, now everyone just whips out a phone straight away, and then boom, you're on camera, and then obviously these things can like spiral and spiral, like sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. Like do you remember like a few months ago, maybe I think maybe November-ish time, it was that kid getting bullied at Manchester school?
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, like back in the day, obviously that probably still would have happened, but there wasn't a there wasn't a camera phone or a smartphone to record it in such high quality and get sent all around the world, essentially, on like Instagram and things, so much so that the school gets notified and petitions and you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it was just a different era. So maybe them things happened, they just weren't on the internet.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Like I said, I'm not saying it as if it's a negative thing that it's come to the front. It's just we never saw it. Like no social media. I had no phones.
Mm-hmm.
I had nothing. You know, you went out to play. You had a time where you could go out and a time where you could come back in, and that was it. That's all you really knew. Whereas now it's a little bit different. I guess you could say it's a little bit safer now, but also people are more cautious of sending their kids out to like play in the local parks and stuff, because I don't see that much anymore.
You really don't. You really, really don't. Like, it was simpler times back then, wasn't it? Like now, it's it does seem, but there's two sides to that thing as well, isn't it? Like you don't want to wrap your kids too much in cotton wool, that when they actually do venture out into reality, you get slapped in the face with like reality. Do you know what I mean? It's a tough sort of balancing act. But want to come on to a topic that I actually didn't even know. We were just speaking about this before we started recording. Is that during the podcast with Azad, me and him got chatting afterwards, and we did mention yourself as like some of the people who were doing really good things in the Sikh fitness scene, and he mentioned that you have a military background, which I didn't even know. So how did that come to fruition?
It's weird. It started from when I was really, really young. Like you can ask my brothers, you can ask my friends that I grew up with. Even from a young age, I had this sort of affinity towards military lifestyle. You know, you used to go to you know, the Millie or anything, Birmingham one, Wolverhampton one. I used to go, even youngster, I used to go straight to the army cabinets and speak to the army lot and then get leaflets and stuff off them. It was just something about that lifestyle that attracted me. Do you know what I mean? And it was just something I always wanted to do. So I attempted to do it at 16, straight after finishing GCSEs. And obviously the parents are like, no, you have to do your A levels first. So I did those and I attempted to join again at 18. They're like, no, you need to do your degree first. So I did that as well. And then I joined straight after. I was like, right, what's going to be the next step? You have to wait till you're 30. You have to wait till you're married. Like, what's the next step? But luckily, I just managed to somehow get away with joining up. But it was something that from day one, I wanted to do. All my projects back in primary school were army related. I can't even say military, to be honest, because I was never interested in the Navy or the Air Force. It was army, always army, that green side of it. You know, when you're younger, it's all about I'm gonna have a gun, I'm gonna go shoot it, I'm gonna do this. But then as you get older, you start to look at the other sides of it as well. And finished my degree, didn't even go to graduation. I just made the jump, to be honest. I was told, I was given 2 weeks warning, you can start in 2 weeks. I was like, done, and never looked back.
Do you think that your parents were sort of hoping that you would fall out of that phase and just be like, we'll get the next set of exams out of the way first, and then maybe you'll forget about it by then?
Yeah, I genuinely don't think they thought I would do it. So it was weird because went through the application processes, that nothing happened. I went through the initial like pre-training training that you have to do, nothing happened. The exams, nothing happened. I took my oath, nothing happened. They were normal. And then the day I was leaving to actually start my basic training, they were like, hold on a second, is this actually happening, sort of thing. And then I did my basic training 14 weeks. They came out to see my pass out, so that's what you call the ceremony once you completed your basic training. And I remember looking at my parents, they're looking at me and they were like, you bloody did it. Do you know what I mean? Like, what the hell just happened? Didn't think this was a thing that you were capable of doing. And I don't think that was on me. That was because growing up, I was a fat, like chubby youngster and never used to run. I used to play football and stuff, but I never showed commitment like long term to the fitness thing when I was super young. So it was a bit of a shock.
So how does that work in terms of, like, I imagine that when you're joining the army, as you alluded to there, you have to go through certain types of like training and obstacles to sort of measure your fitness, I guess. Is that a thing?
Yeah, so initially when you go in, you do like little interviews, they speak to you, educational background, this, that, the other. And as it's constantly an assessment, so they're like, are you educated? Yes. Educated to what level? This level. They'll automatically move certain jobs away from you, because the higher educated you are, or the cleverer you are, the more they want you to go into specific roles.
Right.
So I did my, like, it's called a Bob test, it was, and little interviews and stuff like that. And then they sort of said, look, these are the roles you're best suited to. Which one do you like? And one just stuck out at me. So I said this one. And then once you've chose your role, they give you like training leaflets and booklets of how to get your run times down, how to get stronger, how to get fitter, how to get faster. And then you have like a weekend long thing where you go there for a couple of days, and they'll do physical assessments. You need to do, back then it used to be a mile and a half run in a certain time, certain amount of press ups, certain amount of sit ups. You have to do leadership tasks. So they give you a load of tasks to do, 10 of you together, and they're seeing who's natural leaders and who takes step backs and stuff. And then they'll grade you. And depending on your grade, you'll get your first, second, or third choice role.
Right.
So that's the kind of starting.
So is that, do you think that's when you sort of started to get into fitness a bit more and into like lifting and things?
See, for me, I was always into fitness. Like I always did martial arts and stuff when I was younger. I did a lot of like MMA and stuff. I always played football. I was always active.
Mm-hmm.
I was always active as a kid. My biggest downfall was I couldn't control my food. I couldn't say no. So I was fat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It's a
That
common
was my
occurrence in Indian households.
yeah standard, because like dad used to just load up the storeroom full of stuff. So I walk into the storeroom, there's like 300 packs of digestives. I'm like, go on then, I'll take one and eat the whole thing on the way to school. Just dumb stuff like that you looking back now was easily avoided.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always into fitness. I just wasn't fit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no. I think I especially resonate with that because that's very similar to me. Is in like I was similarly the chubby kid at school. And when I got into fitness, well, into like weight training and into the gym and things, it was very much like my strength was okay. Like I could lift weights, I could do exercises. I was all good on that side of things. It was the diet and nutrition that still I struggle to with today. Do you know what I mean? Like in this lockdown, especially, it's very easy to sort of just binge on things, I guess. But growing up, obviously, you get portion sizes that just aren't meant for kids.
Especially desi households.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, you like, and it's that respect for food as well. So like, even if you get this portion size which is for a grown man and you're a kid, you need to finish it off, otherwise you're being disrespectful.
Yeah. Every time, like, my dad would be like, "Khaya, bahut kha liya tum," but then my granddad would be like, "Hor khala," or like, "I'd finish the meal, I'll go chill out with my granddad," and he'll give me like 4 sesame snaps, and it's just little things like that that made like quite a big difference. But one thing, I think, even from a young age, I was always strong, and I was always fighting fit. Like even compared to people that were my age, I remember like a few occasions we were in the Guru Gar, we had like areas that they used to do, like, remember Shinkin and stuff like that back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were there just like sparring with a couple of the lads, and it was me and there was 8 lads all my age trying to get me to my knees.
Right.
Like we just had like a little thing, and all 8 of them together couldn't do it, and they were knackered by the end of it, and I was still standing. And this was like age 14, 15. And then I remember similarly I was doing like jiu-jitsu and stuff, and we were sparring in this like little youth center that we had called a gal back in the day. And there were lads who were like 5-6 years older than me, and I could like rolling, I could spar one after the other with all of them, and I'd be fine. Like my fighting fitness was always there, but I couldn't say no to a digestive.
Yeah, no, I, as I say, I understand that more than most. With the jiu-jitsu crack, obviously now I think that's becoming a lot more popular than it was probably back in the day when you were doing it. But like what sort of I hear all these benefits of like it's like mental chess and it's more of a mental exercise than it is physical. What sort of like impact and like benefits do you get from it?
I did it locally. It was just like an MMA place that was not too far from mine called Len Bates. I went there for quite some time. I just thought it brought something out in you. It's a stress relief, man, like a massive stress relief. Like we know, coming from our backgrounds and me being the youngest in the household, like there was no stress relief for me. Do you know what I mean? Because like, you know, they say like crap rolls downhill. Like
Yeah.
I was the last stop at the bottom of the hill. So what could I do really? Like there was no outlet. So first and foremost, that was a massive outlet for me. Like venting. Um, it just sort of taught you to accept the crap that you receive and don't let it negatively impact the way you're thinking and what you're doing, because there's always someone bigger, faster, fitter, stronger than you. Always. It's just naturally the case. And every single person that I trained with there, they were all in there longer than I'd been. They were stronger than me. So like sparring with these lot, rolling with these lot, just taught you to hold on regardless of what's happening and just carry on fighting forward. It's mental resilience more than anything. You know, picking up injuries and then still wanting to go back, or having a hard session, having horrendous DOMs the next day and then wanting to go back. Little things like that help me massively later in life as well.
You get like addicted to it, don't you?
Yeah, I finished and then I'll be like, right, I know I shouldn't go tomorrow because I'm knackered, but I want to go tomorrow, sort of thing. Um, it just becomes something you want to do more and more often. And even like when I joined the army and I stopped doing that for a little while, and then I went back to do some sparring with the lads back in the gym we used to have at Wolverhampton. I still kept my speed, still kept my stamina. I was still able to hit hard and take hits, and you retain that sort of knowledge.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. It sounds like it's you sort of like get taught to understand the cards that you dealt with and sort of like capitalize on that, because from my understanding with it as well, as like they can be bigger and stronger people, but as long as you're technically sort of sound and you can manipulate bodies, I guess, then you can still sort of come out on top.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Like for me, it was all a case of building your foundations. Like that's always been a massive thing for me, whether I'm lifting
Hmm.
or I was fighting or sparring or anything, wrestling, regardless of what we did, is strong leg, strong foundation. That was half the battle won. You know, mentally having a strong foundation, that's half the battle won. Like if you're going into a confrontation or an exam or a competition, regardless of what it is, and mentally you're not 100% there, you already put yourself at a disadvantage. And I think a lot of people lose out on that.
Yeah, that's a really important thing for like especially young people now, like nowadays. And I sounds weird for me to say that because I'm only 24, but for like young people nowadays is like I think, as we were saying before, people are discouraged to go to these sort of sporting places, but the mental sort of fortitude that you get from a lot of these places is like really really valuable. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're at a young age and you think you can't do something and you overcome it, like in your mind, like that opens a door. It's like you've knocked down a barrier, which then like when you're going forward and you're getting older and you need that in any form of like either job or hobby in your life, whether that be school or if you go into the military or just lifting heavy weights. If you can like sort of comprehend that your body is able to do more than you think from a young age, I think it really helps you in good stead.
Yeah, massively. Like I think, you know, having a Sikh background, like a strong Sikh background, um, it's something that we should be learning anyway. Mara just said it millions of times. You know, there's a reason why there was one thing against Savar. Like, it shouldn't be about who you're fighting or how big the odds are. It's always about how you respond and how you react. Like, for me, the only thing I can ever control is how I react to a situation, how I respond to a situation. Like, I can't give that to someone else. If someone takes that power away from you, you've lost.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's when you're comfortable in yourself and all you're thinking about is like yourself and not external factors that you can't control, it gives you like it's like a more liberating feeling, because then you're not tied down with what about if this happens, what about if that happens as well. It's just what I can control. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, massively. It's lifting, especially like going into a competition now. You'll have a roster. You'll have like flights, and you'll have flight A, flight B. Flight B will usually be the people who are slightly weaker. Flight A will usually be the people that are slightly stronger, and they'll have like their qualifying totals, and you'll know who these people are. They'll all have social media. They'll all have Instagram. For me, the worst thing people do is look at other lifters and be like, "Oh, what's this person doing?" Because really, how is that positively going to benefit you? If you're ahead of the person, you're gonna slack off thinking, yeah, I've got this in the bag. If you're behind the person, you're gonna be like, oh bloody hell, I'm so far behind this person. What's the point? You know, it has no positive benefit looking at what other people are doing. Like, just focus on you. It's what I do now. Just focus on me. I've done that for the last like 2 years near enough. Before that, it was a case of having a look at what's going on and what other people are doing, but it doesn't really, it has no benefits whether you're fighting or you're lifting. It's just focus on you.
Yeah, exactly. Just make sure you're the best, because like best version of yourself. Otherwise, you'll probably have regrets. And I imagine if you're looking at the people who are above you and you're trying to get there, you're like it might even be subconscious, but you'll probably try to speed that process up. And in that process, like trying to speed it up, you'll probably end up making silly decisions, compromises, or incorrect form, or just whatever it may be that it'll probably just detriment you in the long run.
It's ego. It's always ego. Like,
Yeah.
the things you do, your ego takes over or your jealousy takes over, and it'll make you make mistakes. Like, luckily enough, I've got a coach, a really good coach who's, had a background in this and who's like really helped me progress as a lifter. So I just follow his programming. I've never felt the need to deviate from what he's told me I'm doing, because at the end of the day, a single session's not going to make or break your entire program and your performance at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Just by adding another 5 kg to try and catch up to someone won't do nothing for me in the long run. If anything, it might negatively impact my next session because he's programmed progression in a specific way and I've threw it off.
Yeah, yeah.
So just stick to what you're doing.
Exactly, it makes sense. And well, we're on the fitness and powerlifting topic at the moment. So again, I'll sort of repeat the introduction, that you got gold in the squat and the deadlift in the 2019 Commonwealth Games and silver in the bench, but got gold overall. But there would have been the first time that you walked into a gym. So what was that like? Like, obviously you've got to these Commonwealth Games and you go medalist, but let's rewind all the way to the first time that you lifted a pair of weights and thought, actually, I like this.
Growing up, my older brother was always an inspiration for me, lifting wise. He was always the strongest or always the fastest or always like the best at sport. It's really weird. He's just had like a natural affinity to it, and he's been going to the gym for ages. And when I was fat, he used to try and get me going to the gym, and I used to start, get dom, stop, start, get dom, stop. Like, it was never continuous like love for the gym. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I got to a stage where it's really weird. I was just climbing the stairs, and I got to the top of the stairs, and I was out of breath. And
That's
and
not
I
good.
just and I was just like, yeah, this needs to stop. And it wasn't, I'm gonna start Monday. It's not, I'm starting tomorrow. I genuinely, in my hand, I had a plate of sandwiches and a whole packet of crisps and a bottle of Coke. I went downstairs, I put it to the side, and from that moment, I just changed. I started going to the gym. I started running. The very first thing I did that day was walk around the block. I walked around the block for a week. Next week, I walked around the block twice, and then I ran around the block, and then I ran around twice, and I just did that. I spoke to my brother, and he gave me like program. He like my very first program. This is what you're gonna do on Monday. This is what you're gonna do on Tuesday. This is what you're gonna do on Wednesday, and that was it. Just click. I didn't do it for anybody else. I didn't do it because I was looking at anybody else. I just got sick of being how I was, and never looked back.
It is interesting. Like sometimes you hear obviously people like yourself have a very specific moment that they can recall, and boom, they've just switched everything in that like 1 second. And then whereas other people might have like an accumulation of events that sort of lead to something. I think the best thing that like people can take away from that is you've just started. It's not nothing fancy. It's just walking around the block, and like you can start somewhere. Everybody can start somewhere, like, and then build themselves up like really slowly, just walking around and then increasing the length that you walk in, and then starting to run and then gradually increasing. It's not like Rome wasn't built in a day, is obviously the saying. And I think when people get into like fitness goals, and again going back to the social media thing, at the moment it's very intimidating when you're seeing all these Instagram models that are looking amazing, and all these people on Instagram who are lifting X amount of weight. If you just strip it back down and just start with something minuscule and just continuously grow on it, then you'll end up getting somewhere very fast and you won't even realize.
Yeah, it's the little wins. I think a lot of people, in this day and age, it's all about instant. So fat burners and steroids and everything. People look at other people doing things and they're like, I want this, but I want it instantly. But what they don't realize is, even though like a lot of these people in the fitness industry might be taking things, it doesn't detract from the fact that they've put years worth of effort on top of that.
Yeah.
Like one thing just doesn't mean you can ignore everything else. Like, you want have the little wins. Say to yourself, next week I want to walk around the block. Let's just take it to the most basic, a minute faster than I did the week before. That's a win. Take that win, enjoy that win, celebrate that win, and it'll keep you going for the next week. When people see something like they walked around the block, they're tired, and they've seen someone run, and then they're like, I'm going to beat this person. They run, they get tired, they get fatigued, or they pick up an injury. You've pushed yourself back 6 months. Like,
Yeah.
just ignore that, enjoy what you're doing, and just take it like day by day.
Well, that's it. It's the instant gratification compared to like delayed gratification, which nowadays is the problem. And I think that sort of goes back to the reason that we were probably chubby when we were kids as well, because we wanted that digestive biscuit when we knew that we should have had some fruit or something instead.
I wasn't thinking you're 18, I'm going to be a lump. I was thinking, I want this Cornetto, fam.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
it. Like, I wasn't thinking about the future. I was just thinking about what's going on. But I think social media it's really good, but also I think it's hindered people so much in terms of their growth, because from every aspect, from monetary things like cars and clothes, to fitness, to secure, like people see other people doing things a certain way, but at the end of the day, it's just online personas. You don't know what this person's doing day to day, or what they get up to, or how they react to things. You see a snapshot of their life that they want to show you. Like, all I do online is, on my Instagram, is I post my lifting videos, so people see them. People are like, oh, he's always lifting heavy, but I don't show my accessories. I do so many accessories, all my food, my diet, my sleep. I make sure I get at least 8.5 hours sleep a day, like as a minimum. If that means going to sleep, forcing myself to sleep early, I sleep early. Like, that sort of stuff you don't really get to see.
Yeah, I've said it on this on the podcast quite a few times before. Like it's the benefits of social media are very apparent, but the drawbacks are not as apparent. They're quite subtle. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, one of the benefits is that I've contacted you through Instagram to do this podcast, and there's a very apparent sort of benefit. But the drawbacks might be that actually I've spent way too much on my phone today, and I've not realized, because I'm addicted to just scrolling down and down and down. Because that's like it's I think it's proven now that, like, obviously these apps are based off slot machines, like in casinos, and like there's numerous studies and books written on why why all these apps like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, they all work, because you're endlessly scrolling, hoping to find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, at the bottom of your feed. Instead, it is very interesting, because it's obviously like getting faster and faster as well. Like, Instagram was like the main thing a few years ago, and now TikTok just came out of the blue and sort of blown that out of the water, because it's more explosive, it's quicker content. It's, as soon as you open the app, there's something playing already. You don't even have a choice of
Yeah.
where to look. It's
changed the dynamic a lot, hasn't it?
mentally, like so we have shops up in Newcastle, like that's our like family business background, and the amount of kids that come into the shop who speak in an American accent. They're Geordies, their parents speaking a very, very strong Geordie accent. Yeah, like Geordie Shore type of Geordie accent. Yeah. And then their kids are coming in with some American accent. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? But it's literally just because their parents just give them the phone, right, you crack on, watch YouTube, watch TikTok, whatever. And all these influencers in America are doing these really explosive videos. Like within the first couple, it literally seems like they're on coke. Do you know what I mean? They're like, that's how like explosive they are with their like movements, and it's so bright and colorful, and it hooks these kids in. And then people wonder why attention deficit disorders like increasing. It's like, well, obviously the brains are getting fried. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Like one thing I do now, and I've learned it from another lifter, like an experienced lifter, is when I get close to a competition, my social media is now going to go off. I'm not going to post up my best list. I'm not going to post up my top lifts or my peaking, as they call it, going into a competition. You're going to see my lifting up until the block I start peaking, and then it's just going to be a void. It's going to be me focusing on me, not looking at anybody else, and then I'll let the result speak for itself. And I've seen that the people who do this, they're world champions, they're winners, they're medalists, they're hitting British records, hitting world records, and this is the sort of place that you want to be, rather than just sat on your phone like scrolling through the people that you're going to be lifting up against, thinking, who am I going to beat, who am I not going to beat? Like, I'm going to be myself personally as well, just moving away from that completely. I've never even downloaded TikTok. I refuse to watch TikTok videos when I see them on Facebook or Instagram, like as a matter of principle. I'm like, I'm not watching this because it's on TikTok. I'm not downloading it. It's just not me.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like there's a lot of athletes at the highest level that do that. I remember LeBron James, normally when it comes to the NBA championship finals, I think he does this thing where like he goes dark on all of his platforms. I know like quite a few boxers do it as well, like Anthony Joshua. I think when he comes close to a fight ends up going dark on his like platforms and things, and it's beneficial. It's less distractions. You get to focus on what you're doing, and just have that as your sole focus. So when you're in the military, you were competing in or in the army, sorry, you were competing in like powerlifting competitions there as well, weren't you?
Yeah, so the army has like it's really, really good for sport, actually, like all sorts of sports. But I picked up an injury. I went to the physio, and he recommended powerlifting as a strengthening exercise, or a way to strengthen it. And one of my friends was already doing it at that point anyway. And I just, they have like Facebook pages, they have now an Instagram group and WhatsApp and all sorts. But back then it was just join the Facebook group, and it was the Army Powerlifting Union Facebook group. And that was the very first competition I ever did, was through the army at a RAF competition, just like an introductory one, just to see how things went and how it looked and how powerlifting works, because I didn't have a clue about it at that point.
So how long until you started taking that more seriously? Like obviously you're just doing it to recover from an injury, but like how long until you start thinking, actually I'm strong at this, I'm good at this, and maybe it could go somewhere?
So the very first competition was that one, and the second competition that I did was the Army Championships.
Right.
And I came, I think it was third in my weight category at the Army Championships. Powerlifting wasn't that big in the army back then, but I came third, and I was like, you know what, I'm actually pretty decent at this. I got speaking to a lot of people that were there, and got like, it's such a welcoming place, because like you have rank and rank structure, but that means nothing in sports within the military. So I was speaking to people that were all different ranks from different parts of the country. Everyone was chilling. We were all eating food and training and having a laugh. And we went out for a meal afterwards. And I was like, I could do this. This is like, it wasn't even about being competitive for me at that point. It was nice that I got a trophy and everything, but it was a case of A, I can get time off work to do something I enjoy, and B, I really like the people and the atmosphere. That was my first click in my head.
Yeah, I think there's like in sport in general, there's sort of like that. There's like a brotherhood and a sisterhood because of like there's that mutual appreciation, I guess, that everybody's there to do a similar sort of goal.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think I've heard like the army does have like a really good structure for sports before. I think it was do you know Chris Kamara? The
Yeah.
football player, the guy who played for Middlesbrough. And, obviously, he's like he's funny for his little videos on like Soccer Saturday when he's like, I don't know who got sent off, Jeff, but anyway, I'm pretty sure he got chucked in the Navy, I think it was, when he was a kid. Basically, when he turned 18, I think his dad basically forced him to join the army or the Navy, and that's when. But he wanted to be a football player. But he ended up being really good on the Navy football team and like scoring like 9 goals against whoever they were going up against. That's how he actually got into football, and then became like a professional footballer off the back of it. So you do hear like a few stories of obviously people being really good in like an army setup of sports, and then going on to pursue that sport further. And you're another example of that, because obviously going on to the Commonwealth Games as well. How does that happen? Does somebody come and actually like see one of your tournaments when you're lifts, and then say like bring you out of the army setting and then take you into external competitions?
So thing is, it's the army's really, really big on sport, all sports. Some more so than others, but you always get the support from like your chain of command and your superiors on doing things. Each sport has a head of sport who's got to be at least a colonel. So you always have some form of like head shed higher up person who's coming to these events and looking at people. And the good thing is, it's not just about doing like sports and then it's army against army or army against navy. There's a civilian aspect of it as well. Like each sporting thing or each sport has an external federation that they're affiliated to, and it has to have a civilian governing body. So the
Right.
army was affiliated to BDFPA, British Drug Free Powerlifting Association. So even though I was doing army events, I was also doing civilian events at the same time. So you always have like two aspects to it, and you're promoted in that sense. And the army will give you money, time, equipment to go and compete externally as well. And that's sort of how a lot of people get into it. Like you see a lot of Olympians who our army, like runners and swimmers and judo. A lot of judo people come from army backgrounds, and even sports such as like rugby and football, as you said with Chris. And there's quite a few Fijians that are part of the army team that are also doing it professionally as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. That obviously they've got obviously like a really good structure then to support all sports. Um, so when obviously you've got third in your second competition, you started to take it more seriously. When did you start like winning competitions, and how does that Commonwealth sort of call up? I guess I don't know how that structure works. So how does all of that work?
So the Commonwealth came like years after. So it was the Commonwealth competition was part of British powerlifting. It's the premier international like powerlifting federation called the IPF, the International Powerlifting Federation. And obviously British powerlifting is like a subsidiary of that for Britain.
Right.
But initially I used to be at BDFPA, which is a obviously it has like a worldwide aspect to that as well, but it's quite a bit smaller than the IPF. But I went to like the British championships for BDFPA, and I went to Malta to do the Military Police and Fire World Championships like a couple of years ago as well. But I just started going to competitions. I started going to training days. So you have like regiments. You have your job is part of a regiment, and your regiment is part of like the signals, for example, the intelligence corps, the RLC, like they're trade groups, and each trade group has its own powerlifting team as well. So I started to go into like those training days and getting involved with a lot of the coaches, the trainers, and the referees and stuff like that. And that's just how I got into the whole aspect of like actually hitting civilian events as well, is just actually speaking to people, keeping an open mind, going to events, and taking time out of my personal life to try and get better at it.
So this is when obviously like you're fully enthralled in this environment now. Like it's
Yeah, like I was doing it all the time. I was still programming myself at that point in time after my second competition, and I did a third competition as well, which was a Welsh competition because I was in Wales, and I was still programming myself at that point in time. But it started to slow my progress because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was just going to train. At which point I looked at getting a coach and was introduced to my very first powerlifting coach.
does having all this excess muscle mass not sort of interfere with your army sort of duties and like how sort of flexible you need to be there?
See,
Not as in
when I
like actual body flexible, but like like movement wise.
see, initially when I first started powerlifting, like the first year, 2 years, I was still doing all my running within the army. I was still doing my tabbing, so loaded marches with weight. I was running for my regiment, like across the country at that point. Still, I still had like really, really quick 5 and 10K times. I was still like front of the class when it came to like beep tests and PFAs and everything. It was a hard one because I was good at both, but I wasn't excellent at both. Do you know what I mean? I was always excellent at one and good at one, or good at one and excellent at the other, or good at both, but never like the best at each one when I was doing both. So it is possible, but it will hold you back as well.
Yeah, just I was gonna say I've got your 5 and 10K times here for anybody who's listening and is interested because these are quite impressive. So 5K time is 18 minutes and 12 seconds, and 10K time is 37 minutes and 50 seconds. Which when I've seen that, and obviously you see the powerlifter on Instagram, and then you see these times, you're thinking, this is a matchup here. Like you can't be big, you can't be big and run fast. That doesn't make sense. But how
I enjoyed running. I really, as bad as it is, even now, even being quite a decent standard at powerlifting, I still, if I see someone running on the road or on some days, I'm just like, I wish I could just put my headphones in and go for a run and be as quick as I used to be, because it's quite liberating running for me. It was anyway. Sometimes I never even used to put headphones in. I used to race myself. So I used to time myself running between trees or between lampposts and being like, this, how long this took. I need to beat that. I need to beat that. Like constantly at competition with myself. And I miss that sometimes, but it was easier to run back then being in Wales because I was right along the coast. My camp was right along the coast. So when I used to run, I used to run on a thing called a coastal path. It was like up, down, horrible steep slopes and steps and false cliffs and stuff like that. And it was horrible, but it was good because you were really beasting yourself and pushing yourself. And I do miss that every now and again.
I imagine the scenery was quite nice as well then.
I was beautiful running along the coast, just looking at the open sea, and just when you did get sunshine, it was great. And when it was windy, it was horrible, but it was still fun for me back then.
Yeah. So did you sort of have to like rein yourself back in on the running side when you're taking obviously the powerlifting more seriously? Did you have to like sort of sacrifice one for the other?
Oh yeah, massively. Because when what people don't realize is, for me, the most important thing is recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've done my session, and then I've got to recover, I've got to sleep, I've got to eat, I've got to take a day off. Like I can't just do 7 days a week because you won't progress. So when I used to run first and then do my weights, which is a bad way of doing it anyway. But then I started doing weights and then running, but then I wasn't enjoying the running as much. And I was like, I've got to try and pick one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do like weights one day and then run the next, because then when I come back to doing weights, I'm shattered. It probably is possible, but you won't excel at either at that point in time. You've got to kind of pick your poison.
Yeah, unless you like pivot entirely what you want to sort of do, because like if the thing that I have in mind is like sort of CrossFit. Do you know what I mean? So unless you were like, right, let's sack off the powerlifting and like pivot to CrossFit, because then it actually sounds like you would be good at that as well.
Yeah, like we used to. I remember we had a gym at Gurugara at Sedley Street, called Surblo, and we all used to train there, and we used to do like boxing and stuff, but we used to do circuits. I remember running circuits with the lads, and they were horrendous. You can ask them; they were genuinely hideous. Like, we're doing 10 reps of one thing, 10 reps of another, 10 reps of another, 10 different exercises, followed by a K run, come back and do 10 again, and we do 5 sets. And
Yeah.
I could do that super easily, without rest, without needing a drink, without like blowing basically. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So before I started powerlifting, doing all this sort of stuff, it really built a solid foundation for fitness for me.
What it sounds like, and obviously in the army, I guess you would have to have that foundation anyway. But like, I think it sounds like you had that passion just to have it, like from a young age, just having that really solid mental and physical foundation. But
Yeah, I
maybe,
wanted to win. I just
yeah,
wanted to win, like running, going, like racing with the lads in the army. I was the only upner there in the whole regiment. Like, there was no one else. So when we went for a run, or we did a circuit or anything, I wanted to be at the front. I wanted to be the winner. And then eventually it came a point where you have like markers. So you wear like a vest, and there's 2 at the front, 2 at the back, and you got to keep sprinting to the front to clear paths to allow everyone to run past. Every single time I was chosen as marker, and I was one of the fastest there, because why not stand out?
yeah, exactly. I was gonna say it sounds like you are very competitive if you're timing yourself to try to get that couple of seconds faster. But as you mentioned there, like what is the sort of diversity in the army? Is it like with like obviously Sikh representation, but just generally as well?
See, it's diverse, but not overly. Like, there's not a lot of happening in the army, and I don't think that's from a lack of trying from the army. Like, the army would bite our hands off to try and get more apnea in. There's just less apnea joining.
Right. Okay.
It's just that simple. Like, when I first went to the careers office, the guy was like, I'm surprised, but really pleasantly surprised, because we don't get many Sikh chaps coming here asking to join. That
Mhm.
was the first thing he said, and he goes, I'll like coach you through myself if I need to get you in, you know.
Um, I was gonna say I'm surprised at that because like we do come from like a very proud sort of military background. Do you know what I mean? Like the amount of Sikhs that have were helping out in like the world wars and things. Like we do come for that rich sort of culture in that aspect.
Yeah, and I spoke to a few people, and you get them awkward conversations where they're like, oh, I actually had one conversation with a lad, and he was like, I would never join the British Army, I joined the Indian one. And I was like, repeat back to yourself what you've just said. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I joined because I wanted to learn, and I wanted to learn how to be a soldier, and I wanted the knowledge of how to do things. Like, we don't get that. We're missing out on that. Like, it's really important that we do Shastra Vidya and like learn hand-to-hand defense and combat and stuff like that. But we also need people who know how modern warfare works
Yeah,
and how to do things. Like, it's, you can use a blade, that's fine, but it's come to the point in the world now where that's slowly being left behind.
well, I
And
don't
it's,
think it's slow. To be fair, like
yeah, like, it's
anybody
very,
who plays a video game, could,
yeah,
Call of Duty or something, can understand. Like if you've got a if and you can have melee weapons and something like Call of Duty, but if someone's got a gun and you're going up against a guy with a melee weapon, you're losing.
yeah. Like, it's not, they're not even considered weapons anymore. Like, I had a knife on me the entire time. I had my kripan on me, and I had a knife on me. But no one really uses them. They're tools now more than weapons for a lot of people. Um, So for me, it was a case of, I want to learn how to do these things. I want to learn how to be a soldier. I want to learn how to, live externally and have all these experiences. And it's been great. Like, even though there wasn't as much diversity, and you did get the odd like stare from people who don't know who you are or who don't really understand the culture, but it might be the fact that even when I was running, I was quite a bit larger than a lot of the others, or it might be the fact that I was constantly in like sporting events and stuff, but I never had racial tension or confrontation.
To be fair, and I mean this with all due respect, because I've had a look on your Instagram, like, and I scrolled down to a couple of pictures when you're in your army gear. I would stare. You're an intimidating person. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I saw you, I'd be shitting myself.
It's weird because even when I used to run, I was still bigger than the other lads.
Yeah.
And it's I remember I spoke to this guy on my promotion course. We did our PFA. We went to the start and they were like, "Oh, quick, people, get to the front." And I was like, I just walked to the front, and he looked at me like in a bit of an odd way. He was a Jamaican lad, nice lad. I still keep in touch with him. He looked at me and like, really, you getting to the front, sort of thing. I didn't say anything. We did the run. I did a mile and a half. I did it in like 7 minutes and 54 or 55 seconds. It was really quick.
Yeah.
And he came in a good like 30 seconds behind me as the second person. And he walked up to me. He goes, "I don't fucking believe it." "What do you mean?" He goes, "I don't believe it." He goes, "Who ran for you?" And I just laughed, and we started laughing and we started speaking. He's like, "I don't expect someone bigger to be that fast. Like, it's just, I've never seen it. I've never been beat in my regiment, this, that, the other." And I actually won best recruit on that course and stuff like that. But people don't expect it. Like, but it's down to us to change people's expectations.
Yeah, exactly.
And stereotypes. Like, it's very easy for me to just be the gray man, but I'm standing out anyway. Like, we are going to stand out anyway.
Yeah.
Unless we're in Punjab, we're going to stand out. That's how we're designed. That's our breed. That's our history. So why not stand out for the right reasons? If I'm going to stand out, then I'm going to excel and stand out massively, not just a little bit.
Well, yeah, and I think we do typically do that. Like, I was having a conversation yesterday, and it's that thing, like, we're all over the world, and it like Sikhs everywhere for a variety of reasons, but we're all over the world, and most of the time when we go to that area, like, we could be. So I think in the UK the statistic is roughly we're 1% of the population, but 10% of the GDP, or something like that. Like, we like, we're most things that we sort of contribute to and put our minds to, we sort of disproportionately give like an output compared to our population, which is good. It's something to be proud of. But now, like, I think it's that time where we're getting into places that are sort of not the stereotype. Like, we see football players, like we've got that kid who plays for Bayern Munich, who's got Sing on the back of his shirt, which is amazing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's time that we start to get into fields that are not the quote unquote doctor, lawyer, engineer sort of fields. Do you know what I mean?
There needs to be some change. There just does need to be some change. Like, I think I'm gonna shy away from sports and things like that. Like, there seems to be a resurgence now with the youngsters, but not professionally. It's sports and fitness and stuff, but you don't see people who are full-time dedicated to sports. And I think that's a crying shame, because looking back at Punjab, we had some of the strongest, fittest, fastest people around the world. Obviously that was stripped of us to a massive degree with everything that's happened over the last couple of decades. But even the people that are here in the West at the moment, we got some insane talent. I remember going to watch my brother in football competitions all across the UK, the Asian leagues and the Punjabi leagues and stuff like that. And we had some super, super talented up there, but there just doesn't seem to have the continuation. Like, they'll do sports and then they'll go back to their regular jobs of being bankers, doctors, dentists, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. I think it's the security. Like I've said it before. It's like when most like immigrants, not just like up and but generally, like whether you're Black, Asian, Polish, whatever it may be, most immigrants will come to a developed country. They'll work their asses off in like manual labor, maybe set up a business and become self-employed. But then what they want is their kids to then not have to go through the struggles they did. They want that security for their kids. And then that obviously goes down the formal education, higher education route to get like a stable job in an office somewhere. That's like the blueprint, I guess.
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. But I think scientifically it might not be correct, but I think we're killing off our genetic structure a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, because historically we've been warriors, we've been like sportsmen, we've been wrestlers, we've been fighters, and if we take all of that away from us, we're stripping ourselves down. You know what I mean? Like, it's good to have people in like all these fields like engineering and science and medicine.
Mm-hmm.
We also need the other aspect of who we are as well.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Like, and I think the weird thing that I see is that like people will cheer on those who do it in the community, but they don't want like their own children to do it. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So when say for example Arjun Buller, who was in the UFC, he's still I think he's a one championship MMA fighter. You've got Inderraj Singh, who I spoke to on this podcast, is a professional boxer now, signed with MTK. As I mentioned, we've got Sarpreet Singh, who plays for Bayern Munich in football. We've got Manmeet Jagpal, spoke to him on the podcast, who plays for England's futsal team. When and yourself and Garanjit, when both of you won in the Commonwealth Games and the article was written, like everybody does share these things around and they do support when the individuals are there, but it's like nobody actually wants to do it themselves, and it's like it's one of them weird things. Hopefully it could change in the future. Like we might see like the generation now of us supporting might have kids who then go on to do it perhaps.
Yeah,
but I'm optimistic. I'm always naively optimistic.
no, it's good to be naively optimistic. Like in my head now, I've got goals and I'm not going to stop until those goals are achieved. Now, I remember fam saying to me like, oh, after like every competition or anyone that I won, they're like, kar liya hun, rehn de. Like, it's done, leave it now, it's fine, don't get injured, don't do this. And I'm just always like, nah, like it's not in my mentality, my mind to just be like, this is enough. Like, that's enough mentality is just not something I want to keep in my head, like, or that'll do. Like, even when I hit PBs, sometimes I'm not happy with myself. It's not because I'm comparing myself to other people, it's because I'm comparing myself to what I can achieve or what I know I can do. And I'm always like trying to just strive to be a little bit better. I could hit 2 PBs in one day and then fail the third and be like, that bloody third, I need to fix that third. But that's how we get better.
100%. Do you think that sort of discouragement comes from like nazar? Because that's a big thing. Like evil eye is a massive thing in our community. Do you think that might be a potential reason?
100%. There's a reason why I said even earlier, before this topic even was brought up, that I'm going to refuse to put my top lifts on before a competition, because
yeah,
I've people might have noticed that I haven't been putting my benches up on my Instagram at all for God knows how long, and that's done for the same reason. I felt that whenever it's been improving, I've always got a top set or hit a PB, and then all of a sudden I've picked up an injury or something's happened, and it's never ever genuinely never been down to the programming or a mistake that I've done. I've recovered well, I've ate well, I've lifted well, and then something's happened. So just even if it isn't a case for Nazar,
it's better safe than sorry.
I'm minimizing the things that can go wrong for me.
Yeah, 100%. And if you have that in your mind, then just to eliminate it just for like your mental sort of sanity, then you may as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. Like it's all about enjoying. Like, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, there's not really a point in doing it. Even if you're great at something but you're not enjoying it, Like, it's not paying my bills, it's not filling my wallet, it's not putting food on my table. If I got to a point where it's done professionally, then that's different. But if I'm doing it as a sport, as a hobby, then I need to enjoy what I do.
Yeah, definitely. I want to sort of touch on a topic that you sort of mentioned it before, but steroids. So there's steroid events and non-steroid events, from my knowledge. Yeah, and obviously you said before that you compete in non-steroid events.
Yeah.
So I imagine that like as Commonwealth Games, the British Championships, even the Olympics, I imagine are all just like non-steroid events. They all test.
Yeah, so I wouldn't call them I wouldn't call them non-steroid events. I'd call them drug tested, because you're always going to get people who try and slip through the cracks, and you're always going to get people who are taking but manage to get clean tests.
Yeah, like cycle correctly.
Yeah, there's many things. There was a program on Netflix about about all that thing and how it worked, and how, even like to the nth degree, the most elite levels and at the drug testing facilities, there was cheating and things going on. So will it ever be 100% clean? No, probably not. But for me, it's about, Anak, it's about you and your own pride and being true to yourself. I've never touched a drug in my life, and I refuse to. But that's just me. Even if I could get away with it, I wouldn't do it, because it just wouldn't be right. Like, I have no ill feelings to people that take, like none whatsoever. If someone's taking and they're competing in untested federations, and I know a few people that are, and I'm good friends with them, and I wish them the best, and I hope they succeed. It's just something that I wouldn't do myself.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, it's a topic that I actually really, really like talking about, because I ended up doing my thesis on at uni, like in my master's, like surrounding drugs. Well, not drugs, as in like steroid use, and PEDs specifically. So it's something that I actually like delve into on, and anytime that I'm speaking to like anyone fitness orientated. But it is interesting, like on powerlifting. So like World's Strongest Man events and things. Obviously, they're not ever drug tested, like
Yeah.
when you see like Eddie Hall or Thor or anything like that. And it's always interesting that like people are just drawn to larger numbers. Like there's a market for bigger and better. I think that's like a very American way of looking at things, but there is that market of just like, we want to see the biggest numbers getting lifted. Or if you're on a bodybuilding stage, nobody wants to see that. If Arnold Schwarzenegger stood on the stage now with his prime physique, nobody would care. Do you know what I mean? Because Ronnie Coleman looks like 10 times bigger, or Phil Heath looks like 10 times bigger. And it is really interesting that like that sort of is being forced, I think, now. Like if you want to go somewhere in that field, it's like you have to take a supplement just to end up leveling the playing field.
See, I was having a conversation with a few people, to be honest, and we were sat there and we were like, it would be pretty interesting and pretty fun to watch an Olympics that's untested.
Yeah.
And just to see how far people can push the human body, and maybe it'll help regulate things a bit better, and things will be a lot safer. But another point came up from one of my mates who said that would make people less likely to take in untested and drug tested federations. But I don't think that's the case, because in powerlifting, for example, there is at least 3 untested federations that I know of in the UK, and there's at least 3 tested federations that I know of in the UK. But you still get people taking drugs in the tested federations and trying to get away with it. So I think like adding an untested variant of things doesn't necessarily make the tested ones cleaner, because you're still going to get people who want to win or get away with winning not the easier way, but with an advantage.
See, my thought would have been the opposite, is that when you get to a certain point in tested federations, like if you're winning every single tested federation, then maybe like the next step is to take a steroid or a concoction or whatever it is, like a proper plan. Like I don't want to like badmouth those who are taking it either. Like when you take steroids, you have to do an unbelievable amount of work to it's supplement at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Like it supplements what you're doing. But my logic would be like, if you were getting like the top end of these tested federations, maybe then that's when you start dabbling to see how far you can go in the untested federations.
Yeah, see, people don't do that. Like, I've seen people, I see it every single time there's drug tests done randomly for the IPF as well, and in competitions. And I've had people that have been caught out in even minor regional competitions, just like qualification competitions, or just any competitions that don't mean anything, that are just competitions there for people to see where they're at, and they're even taking for those. So I think it's just human nature to try and get an advantage of people, even if that means cheating. Like, I see it all the time, all the time. People have the option of untested, and they could go there and they could lift, but they'll still try and take and compete in a tested federation to try and win. You're always going to get those people. See, for me, if I ever won the IPF Worlds, I would never go to an untested one. I'd just try it and re-win the year after, because people are still growing, people are still getting stronger. World records have been broken, and unofficially, obviously, because we've had no world champs this year. Like, my weight category alone, like 4 times. So people are still growing, people are still getting stronger, because science is getting better. Our knowledge of how the body works is getting better, so the programs are getting better, so they're getting smarter, recovery's better, so people are naturally going to continue to get stronger, even in untested federations as well as tested federations.
Well, there's just more like technology and information out there as well. So like when breakthroughs do happen, then the people at the elite level obviously are going to capitalize on that. Like, I imagine, and this might be just me living in la la land, but when you start competing and you start earning a bit of money from competing, or you get like from sponsorships and people like can help you get better, that's probably when you can invest in your own training in yourself, like, so recovery will improve. And these things, you might find like a natural raw talent just gets a lucky sort of placement, not lucky, but like a placement in a federation, but then from that placement the next year he might boom, because now he's got all these sponsorships that are helping him actually train properly.
Yeah, like, I am eternally grateful to my sponsors. Extreme Fitness and Strength Shop both sponsor me, and they both give me kit. They both give me like free stuff often, and they both give me massive discounts on their kit. Without them, I wouldn't be in the position that I am now, because I wouldn't be able to train. There's no gyms around me that would be open, and with kit prices going the way they are, I'd probably have maybe a quarter of the kit that I currently do at the moment. And it's been a massive help, and that obviously naturally then helps with recovery, because I'm not driving to the gym. I'm not having that extra 40 minutes driving to 40 minutes driving back. That extra time can then be dedicated to resting or to sleeping or to eating. That's a massive help as well. But on the flip side, it's hard sometimes trying to motivate yourself into the gym.
I can imagine.
You sat there by yourself. It's bloody freezing. You can't touch the barbell because it's that cold. You got a tiny little heater on in the background, and you're expected to hit a PB. It's difficult. It's not easy. Like, give me that same session in a gym surrounded by people that I actually like and that are motivating me, and I could smash that out the park.
Definitely. Like, I spoke to a couple of like PTs and fitness people on this as well. It is like a very different environment. Like, I prefer training by myself, but if there is a day that you're trying to like hit a PB or something, then it's near on impossible. You need that little motivation. Even if something goes wrong as well, you need somebody to be there, sort of.
You need the safety and the support. Like,
Exactly.
I've hit squat PBs 5 times now since lockdowns happen, and I haven't had a spotter or a support or anything. And I know for a fact, if I fail that, I'm having to dump the bar. If I dump the bar and things go wrong, there's no one there to save me. Like,
Yeah.
at all. It's game over. It's 300 kg, 310, 320, 330 on my back. I fall, I'm gonna get crushed. So it's a double-edged sword. So it's on one side, it's like, oh, it's a bit more nerve-wracking. But on the other side, it makes you work a little bit harder, knowing that if you fail, the outcome's going to be that much worse. So you have to get it.
Do you have you, since obviously training by yourself, have you sort of slowed down your progression of growth, so to make sure that it's a bit more safe and secure because you are training by yourself?
It's actually increased.
Oh, really?
I've the last year, all 3 of my lifts have jumped further than the previous 2 years combined, and that's simply because A, it helps that I got a new coach and his programming is a lot better. Cannot take that away. And B, I've learned to change my approach to my lifts quite a bit. So before, I used to go into like a session and my week would be dedicated to my heavy session. So I'd make sure I've slept right, make sure I've ate right, make sure I've done this, had all my vitamins, like my vitamin D, my vitamin B, C, you know, like all of that. I've made sure everything's on point for that one session. I've got up early that day. I've eaten properly before that session. This is what I used to do to prep for a heavy session.
Yeah.
But if any one of those pillars was missing, it'd leave a nagging doubt in my head that I haven't done everything that I can.
But yeah, I get you.
But now I wake up on the morning and I do the lift. Like it's like as bad as it sounds, like I don't overthink it. I don't try and, obviously I get my sleep in, I get my food, everything. Like none of that's changed, but my outcome is now not dependent on me hitting the other things.
Yeah,
So
I get you.
like Monday just gone, I did a 347 top deadlift followed by like 3 sets of 6 beltless back offs at 300 kg. If I was doing that a year ago, my whole routine would be centered around that. I'd have like proper heavy like metal music playing in my headphones. I'd zoned out. I would have taken pre-workout. You know, I would have blocked off time before I did my lift to get that lift. Whereas this time round, I had a coffee, I had some Cocoa Pops. I did my squats, did my bench. I went to do my deadlift. I actually had faster music playing for my light squats than my deadlift. So I went from listening to just like some chill drum and bass to putting on the Jackson 5, like old school Michael Jackson, to lift my top set, which is like 93 to 95% of my 1 rep max. I didn't scream, I didn't shout, didn't think too much about it. I zoned out, I did the lift, I got it done, I got my session done, I went back in and I ate. Like, that's helped me massively, because it's hard to put it into words. It's an expectation to get the lift, yes, but it's not, I'm not over exciting my body to try and make a lift like
Sure.
that.
So surely that would help in a competitive environment as well. Like I'm not sure if, like, are you allowed to have your headphones in while you go for a
Nope.
lift? Or I was gonna say, so surely that would help in that environment if you can do a PB or at your highest 1 rep max to the Jackson 5. It's probably a lot better than relying on like a bass drop or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's consistency. Like if I remove all of my crutches, then I have less things to rely on and less things to go wrong on, you know, less points of failure at that point in time. And that's helped me massively. And that was an idea from that's something that me and my coach were like, you know, brainstorming of how to pull things and how to lift and how to negate the whole like overexcitement. Like for me, I find that people overexcite themselves and they adrenaline dump too soon. And then when they get to their lift, the adrenaline's gone because it's obviously you've done it too soon. The fun's gone because you're relying on this lift to, I don't know, make a placement or get first place or second place. The excitement's gone because it's too late for that now. Do you know what I mean? You've already burnt all that energy. What's left is a shaking version of you trying to make a lift to try and get a placement.
Yeah.
Like I don't ever want myself to be in that position. So I just strip that away completely. And I've had people say, you look so calm doing these things. And I'm just like, yes, because it's just an easier way of doing things.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll be better off in the long term as well, because then, as you say, you're not relying on any of these crutches.
Yeah, and then come to a competition, if I need that extra boost, I can take my pre-workout and it will actually affect me rather than being used to having X amount of caffeine every single day.
Yeah, that's like a really big thing that I personally don't like taking too many supplements. I feel like I try to have as much as I can in my natural food, and caffeine especially. I just don't take any. Like now, I haven't had caffeine for like over a year. I just completely cut out of my diet. But when I did, it's one of them things where you grow really, your tolerance grows. It's like anything else, isn't it? Like if you drink alcohol, eventually your tolerance grows and it becomes ineffective. So when you actually do need it, it's better that you have low levels, like a low tolerance to it, so it actually affects you a lot better.
And then you require less to get the same effect.
Exactly.
My supplements at the moment are whey and creatine, and then a multivitamin. That's it.
It's the best way. Like the more simplistic you can keep it, it's the best way. I thought, I'm not gonna lie, like that's what I have. So Commonwealth Championship Powerlifter, I was expecting a bit more, but still, it is the best way.
Just like things that are proven to work, like things that we know work. Obviously, whey is just whey, it's protein, it helps. Creatine we know works, caffeine we know works. Like it's just the bare minimum. I have a cup of coffee before I train. If it's a bigger session, I might make a Chemex, a real coffee rather than an instant coffee, and that's it. On my lighter sessions, I have a cup of jar before I go in, have a jar and a biscuit, go back to the old school.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I messaged, like, obviously we're not training here, but I messaged you just before we started. I was like, give me 2 minutes, I'm gonna make some jar.
It's just nice to calm things down a bit.
That's our fucking heroin is happening. Like we always go to jar. As we're talking about like supplements and things, you also like, you're a big guy, you're a powerlifter, and most people would think that requires a lot of meat eating, but no, quite the opposite. You are vegetarian, lifetime vegetarian.
Yeah, lifetime veggie. Never in my life had eggs, meat, fish, alcohol. None of it.
When you're getting coaches and who might be like providing like nutritional tips, have they ever basically just went, you could be so much stronger if you ate meat?
No, to be honest, like my coach at the moment, I don't do my nutrition through anyone else. I kind of know what works for me and what doesn't work for me. So I sort of aim for roughly 240 grams of protein a day, around about 370 to 400 grams of carbs, and around about 50 to 90 grams of fat. So obviously I have quite a high protein, high carb diet.
Yeah.
And I've not struggled to hit that once being a veggie. Like I think Monday I hit I just got my app out. I hit 240 protein, 413 carbs, 50 fat. Yesterday I hit 240 protein, 350 carbs, and 60 fat. Like I like to chop and change what I eat a little bit as well, because you got to have some enjoyment in life. Like if everything just revolves, this is what I couldn't do. Bodybuilding, fair play to anyone who does bodybuilding. Prep season, no chance. Give me some cake. You know what I mean? You gotta. For me, I've got to enjoy what I do. The only thing that I keep constant is what I eat pre-training, so that it doesn't affect my stomach while I train.
A couple of questions I have. So one is, I imagine that you're tracking all this on like MyFitnessPal or something similar.
Yeah.
So what is that calorie intake wise? I'm too slow to do the maths in my head.
I'm roughly around 4,000 calories on training days.
I was gonna say it sounded like just above 3,500. I was trying to work it out while speaking, but I was like, nah, but I need to compete with something to do that, like a calculator.
So rest days I'm around 3,200 to 3,300 calories. Training days I'm around 4,000 calories, and that just works nicely for me, so I don't overeat and stuff like that, and it gives me enough leeway so that on a Sunday, for example, I wake up in the morning and I'll be like, I want this eat like vegetarian full English. I can do that.
Yeah. Have you brought on a Sunday?
Anything, hash browns, turka beans, do you know what I mean? Some Linda McCartney stuff. It's just easy. Like you can still eat like good stuff and be healthy. Like go get some pizza, but instead of going to like Domino's, buy the ones from Asda that you can get made, or there's so many like vegan options now as well. It's just easy to track.
Yeah, that's what a conversation I had with Azad was that the options for vegan and vegetarians have obviously like massively increased within the past few years.
Oh, it's huge.
What is your typical like day of eating, and what is that one meal that you don't change?
So I'll get up in the morning. I will have a tub, skyr, Arla skyr. You get it from like loads. You get it from supermarkets all over the place. It's like naturally quite low in fat, quite high in protein. I can get the actual macros up for you now. 1 second. It's as soon as I found out about this, I was like, okay, this is a game changer. You can get them on sale for £1 a tub. So your breakfast will cost you about £1.20, like as a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
It's 37.5 grams of carbs, 1.5 gram of fat, and 41 grams of protein in a tub. And it'll cost you £1.
Okay.
So that's cheaper than a shake.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that.
It's cheaper than a shake. It's skyr from Arla. You get it from anywhere. I'll have that. I'll have a banana, or I'll have some granola or some fruit in with the yogurt, and a cup of light coffee or a jar first thing in the morning. As soon as I get up, like as I'm getting the yogurt out the fridge and I'm making my coffee, I'm eating my banana, and then I'll have the yogurt straight after, then my coffee, not my coffee first, because you just woke up, I want to get some food in me.
Yeah.
That'll be like straight off the bat for breakfast. And then on a training day, I won't have a snack. I'll have lunch straight away. So I could have anything. So Monday I had fajitas. I got some tortilla wraps. I got some like soya mixtures. You can get Plant Pioneers. You can get like the vegan butcher, whatever it is, whatever you want, just some form of like protein. I'll stir fry that in like minimal, absolutely minimal oil. The spray oils, 1 calorie spray, something like that. Use that and some pepper, some onions, spinach, mixed leaf, put it in the tortillas, and I'll eat that. That was genuinely about 1,000 calories with some cheese on.
Oh wow!
So
it doesn't sound that much though. Like when you're saying all these things, it sounds it didn't sound like it would be 1,000 calories.
The 4 tortilla wraps were 100 grams of carbs.
Oh, okay.
So it adds up very, very quickly. You just don't realize. Or I've got a rice cooker, absolute game changer, lifesaver. You wash your jar, you put it in, you put some leche in or some star anise, you just let it do its thing, and then you can put like carrots or spinach or something at the top in a separate compartment, and it steams that through as well.
Oh, okay.
So it works in 2 ways. So all the veg is getting the steam from the rice. It's going through the veg, and then that water goes back into the jar, so nothing's wasted.
That's dope.
Easy, honestly. Rice cooker will cost you 15 quid, and it'll save you so much hassle. You don't have to sit there and watch it, and it'll keep it warm for 8 hours. So you can make it lunch, eat it for dinner. Cheers, easy. No need to complain. I'll have that with like some dal, but obviously I'll make my dal quite thick. I'll put loads of lentils in, and different lentils. I won't just have like just mustard. I'll put like all sorts of different ones in. Anything for lunch along the lines of that. Something that is easy on the stomach though.
Yeah.
And then I might have a cuppa jar a little bit later, and like a granola bar or something. Just anything if I need that little extra bit of calories. And then before training, at least an hour before training, I'll have 80 to 100 grams of Cocoa Pops or some form of cereal, like a high carb, low fat, sugary cereal. And I'll have milk and like a scoop or 2 of whey in with it. So I'll get my protein and I get my carbs hit just before I start training, and I keep that the same every single time.
I don't know why, but I expected something different. Like the one meal before training, I did not expect Cocoa Pops.
It's easy on your stomach.
Yeah, true.
It doesn't give you like tummy rumbles. It doesn't like excessively make you go to the toilet when you're doing like heavy work, or you have to put a belt on. There's a lot of pressure on your intestines and stuff like that. It doesn't hurt. Do you know what I mean? It's really easy to digest. It's easy to find. regardless of where you are in the world, you're gonna find some form of sugary cereal.
Yeah, true.
Like, it's just no brainer. You can buy it from absolutely anywhere. So you never, if I go to a competition, I've just forgot food, I can just go to the shop, buy some cereal and some protein shake and just put it in together and eat it. And it won't really change the dynamic
Yeah. No, it
of
makes
what I'm,
sense. It makes sense. I was just expecting something else.
yeah, like I know people will be like, I have like, like 200 broccoli pieces before I train. Like, nah, just give me some Cocoa Pops, it's fine. I'll do my training and everything. I used to like eat in between the training, or I used to like crash when I used to train back like a few years ago. So I used to take like sugary sweets, but I don't need to do that anymore with the Cocoa Pops and with the whey. It genuinely, even if I've got a 4-hour session, it will fuel me for that entire session. Like, happily, I'll just keep chugging away at water while I'm training. I don't eat anything while I train anymore at all. I can, but I don't need to.
Yeah, I used to see, like, obviously, like when I was first going to the gym, you see all these like bodybuilders and the big guys in the gym would bring their like chicken and rice and broccoli in a tub and be squatting in between sets, and I was thinking, nah, that ain't me, chief. Like, I want to sit home, put something on the telly, have like a nice meal. Like, I can't
But
be doing
like,
it in the gym.
that's it. Like, if you're gonna do it fair enough, fair play to you, but not for me, because it makes it harder and it makes you want to go to the toilet again when you're training.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean? Like, it's just, and in a competition, you don't want. I try and eat as less as possible now. I used to take loads of snacks and stuff like that, but I've just stopped all that, and it's just like some liquids and stuff, some juice maybe, and just eat beforehand. But then I'll do my training session, and after I finished, I'll have like instantly like, it's not none of this bro science stuff, anabolic window. I don't know about all that sort of stuff, but I just like to eat after I've trained because I've not ate for a couple of hours. So I'll have like a light meal. It might be some yogurt, some cherries with like some form of granola, or it will be like just a sandwich with some veggie pieces in, and salad, or just steamed vegetables. The rice that I made earlier with some like veggie mince, anything, just something small to keep me going.
Yeah.
Shower, chill, do my thing, do what I need to do, and clean up. And then at night, in the evening, I keep this meal the same now as well. So I'll do 80 to 100 grams of oats. I'll put in some ground ginger, typical Eastern KTC, doesn't matter, packet ginger, some cinnamon, an apple or a pear or a banana, one piece of fruit cut up, 350 ml of milk, 100 ml of water. Just make like a porridge.
Right. Okay.
Make that porridge on low heat, so you're not burning anything. It makes it really nice. If you put some lechia in, or you put like some badam in, genuinely tastes like kheer. You can't tell the difference.
Oh, fair enough.
If you need that like little bit of extra kick, or you fancy a dessert type meal, it's easy to do as well.
Yeah.
And then I let that cool for a little bit. Put like 52 grams worth of whey, just like vanilla whey, into a bowl, and I'll put the porridge onto the bowl once it's cooled down a little bit, so you're not messing up the protein structure and ruining your protein content. Because I used to put it straight in and then heat it together, but I spoke to a nutritionist, and she said that if you put your protein in with your whey and you boil it, it ruins the protein.
Okay.
So you let it cool and then mix them together, and I just have that at night as a last meal. Honestly, within an hour or two of eating that meal, I'm sleep city, bro.
Yeah.
It just helps me sleep like quite a bit, and apparently oats have like melatonin in,
Right. Okay.
or it increases your body's natural like melatonin production, and it helps you get sleepy.
I was gonna say, is that the reason that you take it just before, like,
Just
as your last meal?
as my last meal, yeah. So I've got some carbs and stuff in my system. I've got protein in my system, and usually by that point, I've hit like my daily requirement. If I need a shake, I'll have a shake just before bed. Or generally speaking, by this point, I've hit most of my macros. I might have a snack of some description if I'm under my macros, or anything from just some butter on toast to some fruit loaf with some butter on, anything, whatever macro I'm missing out on and I need to hit, I'll have then with that meal just as an extra kick.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then just
So
creatine before sleep.
creatine before sleep. I was gonna say, like, even the creatine thing and the anabolic window thing never made really sense to me, because everything that I always read was that both of them are basically, they're not short term things. Like,
Mhm.
so for example, like a pre workout, you take it, you feel the hit. Like, it's very like a short term impact thing. Whereas both of them, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're training like 5 times, 6 times a week or whatever, you're constantly in that anabolic window anyway. So no matter when you have the meal, it's always going to be in that sort of zone. And then creatine, to my understanding, is that you need to, it needs like constant top up for like quite a few days to actually settle into the body.
Yeah, so you
Um,
need to load your creatine for
yeah,
a little while, and then you can just go back to having regular doses. I have my creatine before I go to sleep because that's when I started taking it. So I have it at the same time every day.
right, okay.
It just makes life easier because it becomes a routine. I have it at the same time. I'll have like 5 to 8 grams of it. It's so cheap. Apparently, you only need like 3 to 5 grams. 5 grams if you're a big male, just to keep things topping up over the day. But creatine's such a cheap, easy like supplement to buy that it you can, even if you have an extra gram over, it's not going to make a difference. I'm having like 5 liters of water, 4 or 5 liters of water a day every day anyway,
Yeah.
so there's no issue with like processing it and stuff like that. And I've never really read about the anabolic window. I just eat after I've trained because I'm hungry.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I was speaking to Azad, and he was saying with creatine, obviously it's like the most like scientifically proven supplement, but or like one of them. But he was also saying that like vegetarians and vegans actually feel the impact of it a lot more, because you're not getting like creatine out of meat, I guess.
Yeah.
So like you absorb it a lot better.
Yeah, so I obviously never having had meat, um apparently like veggies and stuff like that can have deficiencies in vitamin B12, and obviously we get no creatine through meat. So I'll always have like a vit B12. I'll have a vit D, especially over winter when we're not able to get out, get some sunshine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just like multivitamin, just the regular multivitamins, in my day, and I'll just have them at the same time, just for ease of remembering.
What specifically does B12 do? Because like I seen up in Newcastle here, there's like a clinic that's open that does like B12 jobs. And I didn't really understand what the crack was, to be fair.
So it's just helps your body's nerve and blood cells. It keeps them healthy, basically. So it allows your body to. It gives you energy, in essence.
Right, okay.
So if you get like, if you have a vitamin B12 deficiency, you start to get like um, irritability, depression, stuff like that. Is quite like symptoms of vitamin B12 deficiency. And like you don't feel as mentally on it as you usually would.
Keeps everything balanced out.
Yeah, and you just have like a lack of energy. You just feel like fatigued and stuff like that. And it's such an easy supplement just to get. It just, I feel good when I've had. It might be placebo, it might not be placebo. I don't know, but it's just the way that I've been doing things. Whenever I take B12, whenever I take D, I just feel energetic and I feel on it.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned that you train for like obviously quite a few hours. Like I imagine when you're doing these massive lifts that your like recovery time in between sets must be quite lengthy, and that's probably why the long sessions.
Um, Not always. So we changed up quite. I used to have quite a lot of time in between each set, but I've lowered that significantly now, to a point where my turnover for my sets is quite high. Um, However, my sessions are long because I have a lot to do. So Monday, for example, I'll have 3 to 5 sets of 8 tempo squats. Then I'll have 3 to 5 sets of 6s to 8s on the bench. Then a top set on the deadlift, all my warm ups, obviously, and then 3 sets of 6 back offs. Then I'll do some rows. I'll do a bit more back work. I'll do some abs. It just ends up being a lot of stuff I'm doing.
Yeah.
So
Right.
even if I'm trying to do it as quickly as possible, it still takes like a significant amount of time simply because of
The sheer
how much stuff
quantity. Yeah.
yeah, sheer quantity of my work. My Wednesdays and Thursdays are usually um quicker because they're not SBDs, but today, for example, I've got like 4 to 5 sets of high bar eights with 247, 250, and then I've got 2 lots of quad exercises, 2 lots of hammy exercises, a calf exercise, 2 lots of stability exercises, and then any rehab stuff that I've got to do, I'll try and get that done at the same time as well. So like wall slides, face pulls, getting my shoulders loosened up and moving, and then I like to do all my warm-ups and stuff before as well. So I like to do like the McGill Big Three. I'll do some mobility work. I'll do some foam rolling, things like that that I do beforehand take up time as well.
For like rehab and recovery, obviously, I imagine because you're lifting so much weight, there's a lot of strain on the body. Um, Specifically, what I actually want to ask is about like spinal decompression. Do you do anything like for that?
Not specifically like for spinal decompression, but I'll do a lot of like mobility stuff before I train. I'll make sure I've got my core starting to get engaged. Like I mentioned, the McGill Big Three, I'll do that. It's, if anyone doesn't know what that is, if you just type in the McGill Big Three, so McGill Big Three, there's like Squat University post on exactly what to do. It's like curl up, side plank, bird dogs, just doing mobility stuff.
Mhm.
I'll do a lot of like barbell complex work, just to get my body moving around, and get used to movement patterns that I'm going to be doing. So me and my coach were quite big on, if you're going to be doing if you're going to do squats, you wouldn't necessarily do bench as a warm up
Yeah, obviously.
because
Yeah, yeah.
there's no carryover. So make your warm ups and your mobilities specific to the lifts that you're going to do. And I'll drop you a link to my coach and a few of his like posts. He gives out loads of free information. He's done like a deadlift warm-up thing, a squat warm-up thing, where he goes through barbell complexes and stuff just to show you how you're going to loosen your body up. I think especially recently with everyone working from home a lot, you're sat at a computer, you're sat straight looking at a screen all day.
Yeah, yeah.
It really affects your thoracic mobility like quite a lot, like your side to side movements, you're bending over, you're very stiff. So get your thoracic mobility going. I always go for a walk before I train, 20-minute walk, uh, especially now that we're working from home, because you don't have that time to drive to the gym. You don't have a switch off period. Going from work straight into training can also affect your motivation, and it did for me for a little while. So giving yourself something to do, regardless of what it is, if you want to go for a walk, you want to meditate, you want to do some art, you just want to chill out and watch TV, do the same thing for like 15 minutes before you train to get into a routine and get out of work mode and into train mode.
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine going for the walk as well, obviously, like you'll be getting your blood flowing and your body temperature up at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Get some endorphins flowing, get happy, get some outdoors, get some fresh air. So even though I don't do like spinal decompression stuff, I do a lot of mobility stuff and I do a lot of rehab stuff, because obviously if it's not broke, don't fix it. But prevention is better than a cure as well. So if you're just constantly keeping on top of mobility, you're less likely to get injured and feel the issues.
Yeah, like because the reason I ask is like last year I got like a bulging disc from like deadlifting, and then obviously that's when I started going to like physio and basically learning about all the spinal decompression stuff. But most of the things that they were saying was that like you need to strengthen your core up to match basically the weight that you're lifting. So that's probably like it's basically what you've just said as well. And
Yeah, like
reaffirmed.
when you asked me like how come my sessions take that long, and I went through my sessions, I said core for each of them. It's because I near enough do core, or a core exercise or some form of stability exercise after each session. So
Yeah.
I don't want to, the worst thing you can do for me anyway is you finish your session, you go inside, you lie down, or you sit on the sofa because you've gone from one extreme to another.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do my walk, my mobility, my training, my rehab, my core work, and then I stop. So obviously it makes the session longer, but it also helps you live longer.
True. Yeah, that's the most important thing.
Do you know what I mean?
That's like, because I wasn't lifting like any ridiculous numbers or anything, but when that happened to me, that's when like I sort of started taking the stretching and mobility work and things a lot more seriously. Like, so now at the beginning of the workout, I used to do this in different ways, but I found for me personally, what works best is if I do like my ab or core workout, like a little warm, like treat it as like a warm up just before I go in. I feel like it's a pre-activation is how I see it. So that if I am going to do anything, then my core is already like pre-activated and I can feel it a bit more. And then at the end, I'll do some like some stretching. I'll end up doing like a bit of cardio or whatever afterwards, and then some stretching. But
Yeah,
it's just
because
something that works for me. So you want?
it's just getting into habits like prehab, like they call it prehab, don't they? Like specific exercises tailored to you to help prevent injuries, and then that's the things that you want to be doing, like, you know, rehabilitation work and going to see like osteopaths and doctors and physios can be expensive, as we know.
Trust me, I
Luckily
know.
luckily the army helped me with my physio stuff when I initially got injured, but if I had to pay for it myself, it's gonna be expensive. So why not do some prehab stuff and like daily little bits and bobs that take 5, 10, 15 minutes out of your day to save you pain in the long run? Because I don't know about anyone else, but I want to be able to walk when I'm 80. If I'm as active as my grandma was when she was 80, I'll be a happy man.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's the thing. Like, fortunately for me, like my mate has a gym up in Newcastle here, and he has like a physio who works there as well. And she was, I think, really honest with me in like how she approached it. But I know like family members and cousins who went to other physios who basically had the same problem, but got sort of trapped in that physio sort of
Mm.
like customer retention. I don't know if like I can't comment on the like reliability, or I don't know what word I'm trying to think of here. It's like the integrity, sorry, of that physio that they went to. But I feel like I was quite lucky that I had like quite an honest person with me and just be like, right, this is how much I can do, but you need to do these things by yourself. And as long as you do these things by yourself and you keep on doing them, you should resolve the issue.
Yeah, and there's loads of free content out there. Like if you know, the money is an issue, I know there's a lot of people that will help you for free, you know, obviously to a certain extent. And there's loads of like free information, like brother you had on last time from Primal Therapy. I've been following him for a while, and
Yeah.
just the things that he gives you online for free, that's a massive help. Free information that you can use. Like my coach gives out loads of free information for people, like I said before as well. Just like keeping an eye on some of these pages, and you know, they explain what they're doing and what it helps. And if you have similar issues, just do it. Like it doesn't take long.
Yeah, 100%. Like I've been following Cohen from Fimo for like maybe two years now, 2 3 years, and I mentioned that podcast as well, like himself, and I don't know if you know of a guy in America called Alphaline X.
Yeah, I know you on that.
Yeah, both of them, like they've got so much free content and work. Like obviously they've got that much of a catalog that you will find something that will apply to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's easy. Like obviously the internet's a weird place. You don't want to, you know, put some of your issues into the internet because as we know it takes it to the extreme. But
Yeah.
if you just have a look at certain places and you know people or like pages that are trustworthy, just have a look, message people. You know, I get people messaging all the time specifically to do with diet because you don't really get many. I don't know if many veggie powerlifters at all, but you don't really get like vegetarian strength athletes that much. And I'm always more than happy to like help people out and just give advice. Like it's a responsibility for us to try and help people out. You know, I'm not saying that coaches and stuff should give all their information for free. No, obviously I'm not saying that, you know, they put time, money, effort into getting their knowledge, but to a degree, you should still be trying to help people out.
But it's a good business plan. Like, so the friend that has a gym here is called Adam Collard. I've had him on the podcast. He's like a personal trainer and does like nutrition. And his whole marketing scheme and the blueprint's out there. It's not like he created this. Is give a bit of free content out so that people know what you're about, know that your techniques and methods work, and then they're actually more likely to spend money on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, because they know like you're a reliable source of information and you're giving them content already.
Yeah, exactly. And I try and, like, in my posts and stuff, I try and give like a little insight into what I'm thinking and how I'm like doing things. And I think that really helps people as well, because you don't want to be surrounded by people who all think and approach things the same way as you do. You know, being surrounded by yes men is a bad thing. Like, a thing I read a while ago is that back in the day, like kings and courts and stuff like that would always have a naysayer, someone who'd say no or someone who'd question it. And I think the Israelis have like this thing where they put, it's called the 10th man. So if 10 people are sat down and 9 of them agree, it's the responsibility of the 10th person to say no and look into it as if that thing is incorrect and try and prove that it's incorrect. It's good to have that sort of person and that sort of people around you as well to try and get you thinking in different ways. Because I've had this situation, like training my entire life, that people are like, oh, this is the best way to train, this is the only way to do things. And then I've had people say, what about this way? And that one person has opened my eyes and made me into a better person, better lifter, a better athlete, and just helped me all around.
Yeah, like, well, it does make sense, and I think it goes back to our previous conversation, like a bit earlier in the podcast, when we were saying that things now on online and things are a bit more difficult to be contradictory. Do you know what I mean? It seems like you have to all agree to the same happy old story that's going on. A question that I had when you was speaking before about like vegetarian and like strength athletes is, I don't know if you watched Game Changers, the documentary that was on Netflix.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What did you think of the diet of the powerlifter in there? Because for me, um, as a whole, I didn't really agree with a lot of the things that the documentary was saying, because I viewed it more of like an advertise for veganism. Like, it was very American commercial-fied, but his diet for me just seemed like a bunch of junk food.
See, as soon as I actually watched that program late, because even watching the advertisements for that program, I just, it felt there was something off about it. Like you said, it just reeked of commercialism and like an American capitalist like outlook on things. Like, I'm not anti-capitalist at all, but that's beside the point. It just reeked of that completely. I was eventually forced to watch it.
Yeah.
I had a look at it, and the first thing that stood out to me was that a lot of the things that they were saying were all anecdotal. They had very little basis in science. You know, there weren't massive studies with a lot of backstory. So I think things like that actually negatively impact and actually hinder veganism and vegetarianism than positively do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if someone says 100 right things but they say one lie, people focus on that lie. Like, you spoke ill there, you did a lie there, so how can we believe the rest of it?
I think that's what happened, because, like, obviously, my views, I'm not the only person who obviously picked out all the things that were going wrong with it and had the view that I have. Like, there was a lot of people who came out afterwards and were like, this isn't exactly 100% transparent.
Yeah, but the guy's like diet, it's an odd one, because he do you remember Eddie Hall's diet? Like, when he was bulking, like, he just filled it full of shit
Yeah.
to try and get to like a certain weight, and he had to have oxygen mask. The doctor said to him if he carried on that way, he wouldn't last another year. He was smaller than the other powerlifters, other strongmen, so he had to get to a certain weight. He smashed it. He won World Strongest Man. He got the deadlift, but then he had to stop. This guy's going down the same sort of route. It seems to be a quantity over quality sort of
Right.
goal for him, like eating all that crap stuff and processed stuff. Like the whole point of being vegan for a lot of newer people is like being environmentally friendly and being healthier. But if you then go vegan but just eat nothing but processed food, it defies the point.
Yeah, exactly. So what is it? So Eddie Hall and himself are basically going through the blueprint of getting as much weight as possible so they can leverage it to lift weight.
Yeah, it just seems like that, you know. And no disrespect to Eddie, I love Eddie. I follow his YouTube. I think he's hilarious. I've spoke to him as well. And he's just generally all around a nice guy. But that year suited his physique, you know,
Yeah, I get you.
which enabled him to win. Whereas this year, if you see the heavier guys, they didn't do as well because there were a lot more like movement events and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I heard like when he did win that year, there was a lot of people that commented similar to yourself that it was very much suited to him. But I think like you do get sort of, it's one of them things like, I know this is going to be a weird comparison, but like, you know how like Modric won the Ballon d'Or a couple of years back? It's one of them like, you know, you've done good for the sport for a few years now. Like, we'll give you a little reward here. Do you know what I mean? It seemed like
Yeah,
one of
see,
them things.
the thing is with strongman, all the like stuff and is picked out in advance, and they tell people sort of the events that are going to be happening. They might hide some of the final ones, but it's not done to benefit one person. Like some years benefit others, some years benefit others. It's just the way that it works.
Right. Okay. Fair play.
And a lot of the people that did say a lot of negative comments were very pro Thor,
Yeah.
and that whole controversy. And I don't usually like to take sides, but he was in the wrong, man. Like you can see it from the videos and stuff. And even Magnus Magnusson, who's Icelandic himself, was the referee on the event in question that Thor said stole it from him. So you can't. There's no question to be had. But going back to the original topic, it's just not the right way of doing things. Just putting weight on for the sake of putting weight on is not the way to go. And like trying to live a healthy lifestyle by eating crap again is not the way to go. But I personally found that people have an issue with stuff like that when they eat too clean. So they'll eat too clean for 6 months. They won't allow themselves any like any diversions, any like deviation from their diet. And then they'll have 3 months of pig out and you've achieved nothing.
Yeah. Then it just balances itself out. It's like,
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Whereas what I do is I have something each day, as long as it fits my macros. Like I'll have something. So I might have a donut, or I might have like, I don't know, some banana bread, vegetarian, vegan banana bread. I might have anything whatsoever, just something in the day, like even a piece of toast with some salted butter and some blueberry jam. For me, having one of those a day
It keeps you
keeps me
sane.
on the diet long term.
Yeah. Yeah. It keeps you sane as well.
Yeah, don't like, limit yourself and like pad yourself into like this little one by one room that you can't escape from, because when you do escape you just go nuts.
Yeah. True. Um. So now that like obviously you obviously when everything opens back up like lockdown wise and things, you're going to be competing again. Do you are you moving up like weight categories and things as well?
No, so my goal at the moment is to hit 900 kg at sub 105.
Right. Okay.
How I do that, I don't know. As in like how that's going to be broken down to squat, bench, deadlift, I don't know. My squat's flying through the roof. My deadlift is like really, really strong at the moment, and my bench is getting a lot better than it ever has been. So I think I'm probably sat at around 865, 875 at the moment. If I were to do like a conservative test.
Mhm.
So I reckon another couple of blocks of programming, hit a few more deadlift PBs, keep my squat ticking over, keep pushing my bench, and I want to hit 900 as a 105. If I tick that, I'll possibly move up to 120s and put some weight on in the right places.
Do you have to cut to make? Do you have to like do like a mini little cut to stay in the weight category?
I never used to. I've never once needed to cut for a competition. I've always gone in light every single competition I've ever had. The last couple of competitions as well as a 105. I've gone in at 100, 102, 101. The Commonwealths, I was the day before, I was eating an entire kg tub of Reese's ice cream the day before because I was underneath and I was eating before I'd weighed in.
Oh, so to get up into the category, you had
No,
to.
but just I didn't need to. I didn't
Oh,
need to
okay.
get up, but I didn't also need to cut. So just to get energy in, I ate before I'd weighed in, so that I could then eat after I'd weighed in, and I'd have 2 meals before my competition started. The competition started at 8. My weigh-in was at 6 a.m. in Canada, so I managed to get 2 meals in before 7:30. So it is what it is, but.
Yeah.
With my weight category at the moment, 105, the weigh-ins are always AM weigh-ins on a Sunday.
Right, okay.
And my competition is usually AM on a Sunday. It's just the way things work with the weight categories and how they're spread out. So technically, I don't really need to be underweight because I can very easily just maintain weight or cut weigh in and then do my lifts, and it won't be an issue. So we've changed up our approach to lift in terms of I'm now over 105 and I will be doing a light cut into the competition so that I have as much advantage as I can, because a lot of people cut from like 110 or they water cut from like 108 110 and they lose all that weight, they weigh in at 105 and then they rehydrate and they're 110 again. And if I'm 102 and they're at 110, they're at an advantage. Obviously, we said that weight isn't the be all and end all, but if they're 110 kg of muscle and they're decently lean, not too much fat, and I'm 102 kg of mostly muscle, lean, not too much fat, he's got an advantage.
Yeah, it's more leverage, like we were
So
speaking before. Yeah.
most like competitive powerlifters do that.
I
So
was gonna
now that I'm
say,
actually competitive, I can actually do that as well.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say because I didn't know if that was a practice like you hear of. Obviously, with anything with weight categories, my mind instantly goes to like boxing and MMA and things, and obviously they weight cut for that advantage. But I
A
wasn't
lot
sure
do.
if I wasn't sure if it was in powerlifting or not as well. That's
a lot
interesting.
a lot of people. I've genuinely heard of people. I saw a guy who cut from like 113 to 105. He doesn't actually powerlift anymore, but that's insane.
But surely you may as well just be like in the next category because it might adversely.
Competitiveness. So he was quite a short lad. He was like 5'8", 5'9", I think, 5'8" as a 105, which is about right. I'm too tall for 105s, really. So for him to go to 120s, he'd be morbidly obese, being a 120,
Right.
or he wouldn't have that frame to put that much size on. I think height's a limiting factor for a lot of people when it comes to like what weight category they're in. For me, my ideal weight's 110 to 112, but there's no 110 to 112 category. So for me, I either sit at 110, 112, cut to 105, or just go up and try and put mass on in the right places slowly over time. But I want to hit 900, 105 before I do that.
How tall are you?
I'm 6 foot, dead on.
Dead on 6 foot.
Yeah.
Because you see in some of the competitions, obviously, like going back to Thor and Eddie Hall, like some competitions do, or some lifts specifically, obviously, are better for shorter people, and then some lifts are sort of better for taller people. But it gets to a stage where like tall is can sometimes hinder you as well, right?
Yeah, to a point. So obviously your leverages kind of dictate how you do things, how you pull, and how effective you are at doing certain things. But it's also not. It's not the be all and end all. It can hinder you, but it won't be like the worst thing. Like I've seen people who are not built to squat, but they squat a lot simply because they've put the effort in. Like for me, I got like quite long arms, so it affects my bench. Obviously, years of being in the army, years of like doing wrestlings and things like that haven't been kind on my shoulders, so my shoulders give way as well. So your physiology does 100% affect your lifting and how you're going to be. But like 105 kg category, if you look at the world championships and the best lifters, most of them are sat at like 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah, because it's that thing that they'll be short and they can leverage all that weight to just get something up really quickly. In terms of like a deadlift, I'm thinking
And
of.
plus, they can put more muscle on in their frame
Yeah, true.
for that weight category. So obviously, I'm a bigger frame, therefore I'm able to put less actual muscle on for 105 category than someone who was, let's say, 5'6".
Yeah, makes sense. The person that I'm thinking of mind of being quite tall, and when I seen him like lift, it was like freakish. Is Brian Shaw.
Yeah.
Like I remember like obviously like going watching some of the competitions and things. My main focus was on Eddie Hall because he's British, and like I sort of knew of him from that sort of side of things. And then you see Thor from Game of Thrones, and you're like, oh well, yeah, I know him because he's the Mountain in Game of Thrones. And then here comes this guy called Brian Shaw, and he's like, I was like, whoa, who's this guy? I
They're
think
like 200 kg guys though, Joe.
I know it's absolutely crazy, and I think this was when he was winning like consecutive like World Strongest Men,
Yeah.
like a few years ago. It was absolutely ridiculous. But another very important topic, which is another I don't know if it's a passion, but I'll call it a passion for now. That I wanted to talk to you about was gaming.
Yeah, I'm a massive gamer, always have been.
Yeah, I've
From
seen you
day
play a lot
one.
of Apex.
Yeah, I play all sorts. I'm a bit of a PC master race kind of person. I used to have consoles, obviously growing up, because PC gaming can be quite expensive sometimes.
Yeah,
But I grew up with consoles. I grew up playing N64, doing like Bomberman and GoldenEye and stuff. I had the original PlayStation, PlayStation 2, Xbox 360. I've had consoles throughout my life, and I've constantly been a gamer. It just gives me something to do that I can chill out with, and you don't need to think too much about. But I'm quite into PC gaming at the moment.
what led to the switch from console to PC?
Honestly, I don't even know, to be honest. I just saw some of the PC games that were going, and there were some quite nice like PC games out at that point, and it looked a lot better, and obviously it was more powerful. And I thought, you know what, let's give this a try. And the first 6 months of PC gaming was horrendous because you're trying to get used to the mouse.
Yeah.
And obviously I was one of them people that just moved my wrist when I was aiming, so I had my sensitivity really high, so I was doing crap in games. But perseverance, and just playing and actually getting some time spare to do that, and now I'm primarily PC, and I play all sorts of games, to be honest. Everything from Tarkov, like a first person shooter, and Apex, like we said, all the way down to like Total War games and Civilizations. Anything, to be honest. Anything I get my hands on. It's so cheap as well with Steam games for like 3-4 quid on the sales, compared to like having to save up to buy a 40 quid Xbox 360 game from Game. It's just ease of use.
Yeah. No, I completely get it. Like I ask because I'm still console, so I've got my PS4 still, but a lot of my mates have started moving over to PC because they're like setting up like Twitch streams and all that sort of banter.
Master Race, bro. I told you, it's where it needs to be. I got a PlayStation 4 simply to play God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, there are some exclusives that I enjoy, but even those are slowly coming across to PC now. Like Horizon's on PC, Days Gone By is coming on PC. They're just moving across because there's money. Where there's money to be made, people will try to make money.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Like my mate who's just switched over, he's going through that period at the moment, of adjusting. And what I found recently though is like I've stopped playing like I mainly like FIFA and Call of Duty. Quite basic in it, like one of the basic bitches just playing like the simple games. I played Apex, yeah, and honestly, I couldn't get the hang of it. I just didn't really. I wasn't accustomed to it, and I just didn't really like it. Like when Call of Duty did the whole you can run on walls and jetpacks and all that banter. I just like a Black Ops 3 or 4 or whatever.
Advanced Warfare was the one that lost me
Yeah, that was it. Advanced Warfare is when I stopped playing as well.
with the stupid
And
mechs.
yeah. Them skeleton things. I hated it, so I just stopped playing then. Then obviously Warzone came out last year, and obviously like during the pandemic, so I got back on it. But yeah, I'm a bit basic in that respect to the games I play.
See, we used to be like that. Back when I was younger, we used to have called the Agal Youth Club, the Agal Foundation back in Wolverhampton. We had like 50, 60 lads coming in on a regular basis each week. We bought, like rented a house from the Guru Gar. We sorted it all out ourselves. We renovated the whole thing. We did radios, like full-blown actual on the radios. At the top, we had a studio for people to make music. Middle floor, we had like 10 computers and Macs and stuff, PlayStations, Xboxes. Downstairs we had like a chill out area. We did like, you know, veggie barbecues, we did road shows, all sorts of stuff. But we had like gaming events there as well every Saturday in the evening, especially over like winter when things got dark. Instead of lads going out and just chilling out on the street, we used to get all the youth in. We used to have like games together. We used to play COD, split screen, 3 TVs on at the same time, 4-way split screen, loads of us lads just taking turns on Rust, on the original Modern Warfare and stuff like that. Just stuff like that was just fun, you know, is the lads together, everyone having a good time, no negative feelings. It was probably like the best 6 months of my life was like that sort of stuff happening.
It was so much better back then. It was simpler times, honestly. It was simpler times.
It was just chilling, and like people lost, people won. I was the best, obviously.
But competitive nature coming through again.
Competitive nature, like racing games now, but shooting games, everyone knows. But we had good times. Like even now, I try and get into some, like I play Rainbow Six Siege and stuff. I'll get into some competitive ladders and have fun with people. I just like to be, as bad as it is, I like to be good at things. No one likes losing. If they say that they're happy with losing, they're lying. I'll show you a liar. So it's just about being good at what I'm doing. I think it translates 100%. Over to that as well.
What I was gonna say before that, like I've basically stopped playing these online games simply because, you know, like FOMO, like especially like on FIFA and even like Call of Duty, there was like everything now is like battle pass orientated and things like that, and it's like there's that fear of missing out, so you have to constantly be on them, otherwise the skill gap just gets like ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So I've just started playing like going back to like playing campaign games, like your Red Dead Redemptions, your Assassin's Creeds, and them sort of games where it's just like it's a nice campaign that you can just go at your own pace at. Because honestly, like I used to be sick at FIFA, like last year, even this year at the beginning of this year, getting like elites in the weekend league and things like that. But then you miss out a couple of weekends because you're busy or whatever. There's these new card types come out of like a new like Ronaldo's out, and you can get them this way, and then everybody's got that new card type in the weekend league, and you're done. So it's like suck that off.
I was never into FIFA. Me and the lads I used to be around with, we used to play PES, original PES, like, you know, with Adriano at the front. PES,
yes, man, I remember that.
That's the sort of stuff we used to play and we used to be competitive at. And then like Need for Speeds and stuff. I was down with COD, and still they started releasing like battle passes and DLCs and stuff. It's the primary reason like PC is places like Steam. I've got 400 games on Steam, and I've probably paid less than I would have 10 games on a console, you know.
No.
Because I get them on sale, like Steam's winter sale. I picked up Metro, Far Cry, Total War Warhammer, and another game for under 16 quid.
Oh, wicked.
It's just cheap, and they're single player games that I can play quite a lot of them, and I can just have fun with them. And I can come and go as I please, because as I'm busy with work, I'm busy with training, I don't really know, like games like FIFA and COD and stuff. Like you said, you have to put so many hours into them. I don't have the time or the patience to like be able to do that. Like I want to come back and I want to have a chill game with people, which is why I play Apex. It's just a bit more fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why I've stopped playing like a lot of them online games. It's just because you have to keep up to date with it, otherwise, like again, like as you say, you don't have to. When I say you have to, you don't actually have to. It's like nobody's forcing me to go on and play FIFA every weekend, but like you said, like nobody wants
You
to
don't
be
want to get left behind.
Yeah, you don't. I know, but I don't want to lose every game. Like, why would I go online to lose every game or get like a negative KD ratio or something? I'm like, nah, that's not. I'll leave my positive KD and I'll just leave it there, sitting there. I can look back and be like, yeah, it's positive, and I'm happy with that.
I logged into Warzone and I looked at the screen and like all these like packs and battle passes and store. It looked like a mobile game.
It's too confusing. It's again, it's where money is, isn't it? It's like the amount of kids that come in, the amount of like mums and dads who come into the shop as well and get these PlayStation vouchers because there's a new Fortnite battle pass or the new Call of Duty battle passes came out or a new skin on whatever game is here, and like it's just another trick of making so much money in it.
Yeah, it's long for me. Like the COD runs like shit as well. I did like computer science at uni, so I was into programming and stuff like that. And if I go onto Battle.net now, COD takes up like a terabyte worth of space, and it runs like shit even on my computer, which is decent. So I'm just like, you're not optimized it. You've not done it well. You constantly have glitches. You charge the same price every year for basically a skin. Like, I don't want to put money into the pockets of people who are just like releasing stuff to try and bump people.
Exactly. That's why like I didn't mind things like Fortnite when it first came out because like it's completely free to play. Like yeah, the battle pass is there, but it actually has no influence on the gameplay itself. Like it's just skins. Whereas like on COD, they actually like give you like specific guns in the battle pass, which I'm just like nah, because everyone will just use that overpowered gun which is in the battle pass by buying it. Whereas like something like Fortnite, I think Apex is quite similar in that sense as well, isn't it? Where it
everything's like purchasable and it's just skins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nothing really makes you like better at the game. Like you don't need to. I haven't like put a penny into Apex, and I've got like loads of legendaries and epics and stuff simply by playing and winning. And I prefer games like that. There's a new game out called Valheim. It costs like 12 quid, and they've sold, I think, like, God knows how many million copies for a like co-op game with no like downloadable content or anything. It just goes to show that you can still make so much money. And there's 8 people making this game. 8 people. They've sold millions.
Flipping hell.
Yeah, absolutely millions. Like #1 watched on Steam at one point in time. #1 concurrent players on Steam at one point in time. It's just insane.
It is absolutely crazy. Like you see them. I think Fall Guys was similar in that sense as well. Like that little couple of weeks where that was popping off. It's like there was a couple of guys who made it.
And Among Us.
And Among Us, yeah. For the couple of weeks that was popping up as well. There are so many these games where they just randomly pop off, and you see the developers on the back end. There's only a couple of them, Bajari, and they just can't keep up with like demand. I say Bajari, they're making a killing.
I'd rather pay to people like this though. Like and going back to my roots, Doom is probably one of my favorite like newer games. I used to love listening to that soundtrack, Lifting Heavy. I've changed that now, like we spoke about, but it's still one of my favorite games to play.
You know, with God of War, did you ever play? Remember they released the one game for PSP, like a special PSP God of War game.
I never got the PSP.
I'm not even kidding. The only reason I got the PSP is to play that game. Like I was a massive God of War fan. I loved the trilogy on like PlayStation 3, I think it was, PlayStation 2 and 3, I think. And then they released this like special like one-off sort of. It wasn't part of the main storyline, but it was just something to go on the PSP and like compatible with it. It was really good. I preferred the Greek mythology to this Nordic mythology, though. I'm not gonna lie.
See, I prefer the Nordic one.
Oh no, I've always been like a little nerd for like all these Greek gods and all that. Like when I was a kid at school and stuff, I'd always be like that, a kid like in the library and checking out all these books.
I used to be the same for the Norse mythology. The only problem at the moment is like this Viking look and history's become like a thing for people to do now.
Yeah, it's in trend.
That makes me like it less.
Yeah, because they've got Valhalla as well in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. In comparison to the game before Odyssey, I put a lot of hours into Odyssey, like 190 hours or something, maybe thereabout into Odyssey, and it was a good game. And then Valhalla, they took away all the fun aspects for me, like ship battles and sea shanties and stuff like that. They took it all out, and I was like, like going back a step. They'll probably charge for it after, you know what Ubisoft's like.
Yeah, that's it. It is really interesting, to be fair. coming to the end of this conversation, this podcast that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and thank you for your time again.
Yeah,
what I usually do is ask every single guest the same 5 questions. They're sort of in a quick fire fashion, so it's like if we can keep it to like a word or a sentence, it would be quite cool because this is like very interviewee style. So the first one is, what are you most proud of?
Honestly, not breaking who I am throughout my time in the army.
Sick. What are you most looking forward to?
Competing for Team GB at a world stage.
What is your biggest motivation?
My grandparents.
What is your definition of success?
Being better than yesterday.
Smashed it. And last but not least, because it's the KultureKast podcast, how do you think your culture has affected you thus far?
Massively, like absolutely huge.
Wicked. That is that's dope. As I said, like I've seen your story after the Commonwealth Games, and I wanted to. This is way before I even started the podcast, and you were one of the first people that I actually wanted to get on because I seen it and I was like, yo, seems like a dope ass guy to talk to. I've been looking at your stories and things, and I seen the gaming aspect. I seen that like obviously you post a lot of memes, and you just seem like you have a lot of banter as well. So I was like, this will be a really good conversation. And
see, for me, when I get to a certain level of followers, I'm like, I'm gonna post some fucked up shit, some fucked up memes, and get the people to like see their own way out, level things off a bit.
Yeah, true. Well, it's worked the opposite, I guess, for me. I seen it and I was like, yeah, I think this will be quite cool. And yeah, it you haven't disappointed. I had very high expectations for this conversation, and they've all been met.
Thank you.
No worries. I'll leave a link to your Instagram in the link in the description, so people can go and follow after this if they choose to, or just check out your training and the funny stories that we're mentioning. Is there anything that you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me on here. It's been a pleasure. Sorry it took so long, but with work and things going the way it is, it's just been a bit of a mental ride over the last like year and a half or so. Hopefully things will open up, pandemic over, and we'll get people you've had on the podcast, especially like the lifters and stuff, together at a gym somewhere, try and get a session in and see everyone face to face.
100%. I think I've been speaking to obviously the couple who organised the Seek Muscle event, and they said that they're going to try to be doing it every single year now. So hopefully we can all get down there and support each other.
Yeah, that'll be a laugh. Get some food in as well. I haven't had samosa in so long.
Yeah, definitely the food. Definitely the food.